there you go. That's the lead up to this. Vary your thoughts.
I do not think that companies should be cracking down on mods that only affect my version of the game. I think that that is the beauty of mods, is if I want to download it, I can download it, and if you don't...
Happy Pride Month, Happy Pride Month, ladies and gentlemen. Nope. Happy Pride.
Yes, sir.
Is this thing on? I guess it is. Alright. My name is Blake.
Hey, we going to do something other than just stand here?
Hello and welcome to this supplementary episode of the Press Start podcast, Press Start Australia's weekly video.
What's up, guys? Samuel Radjunk here, and it is trade night. Once again, we do this the first Saturday of every month. We let people come in, buy, sell, trade their games. It's basically like a big community swap meet, and it's a good opportunity for people to bring out toys and collectibles that we don't otherwise take. We actually had to do this
doing something?
the last Saturday of this month for June, because Joe and I are going to be in SoCal next weekend at the SoCal Gaming Expo.
I don't even know how I'm going to do this video because I'm very frustrated and I don't know even where to start.
And I have discovered that
When you decide to step up to this kind of play, this kind of fun.
Should I make sandwiches?
This kind of experience.
Hey guys, nice jacket, Paul.
Why are you dressed like you're in a boy band?
Seriously? My Super NES commercial from the 90s with my long black duster, indie rock hair, and beaded necklace? Now we're playing with power. Come on.
Hi, football.
Lisa.
I can't wait to tell my class how I clowned you guys.
That's a lot of lift out of you, Lisa.
Time for our thumbs to do the talking.
Let the games begin.
Lisa, how are you going that fast? You don't even have an actual driver's license. Let me show you a little something I learned in the 1900s. I'll be honest with you, that was purely accidental.
You boomers are cute, but you're gonna lose.
Don't be so sure, Lisa. I take tons of supplements.
She's on a wall. She's on a wall.
Lisa, get down. You're not allowed to be up there. My head is a burger, and you know what that means. I know exactly. It means something good.
I've never been this bored in my entire life.
You know, guys, it's nice playing with power, but this is better because now we're playing together. Super together.
Uh-oh. He's doing a voice.
Nintendo Switch 2. All together, anytime, anywhere.
Everyone loves the New Jersey Mike's chocolate chunk mini cookies made with brown butter, baby. The camera person, the sound person, even the person who lives in my pocket.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I have discovered that, believe it or not, this thing, this RG557, is a retro handheld. I can see you're speechless with amazement. That's understandable. And if, oh God, Mom, get the fire extinguisher.
Aaron,
Tech Tweed, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video today, and welcome to my testing lab, which totally isn't my regular desk with a white cover and some random crap I found in my garage. Today we're here to look at this thing, the RG557, Amberlich's new top-end retro doodad. This is sort of a refresh of their last top-end device, the RG556, which I reviewed on my channel before. It's the same size and shape, but with new guts inside and a new screen, I think. Maybe it's the same screen, I don't know. But I do know that this is their new flagship, the best of the best that Amberlich has to offer. This thing is kind of a beast, but also kind of janky, but also kind of cool, and also kind of weird. It's kind of lots of stuff. And today we're going to dissect this thing with the full force of all the science I can muster. This RG557 was kindly sent to me by Amberlich for the purpose of review. And this RG557 was kindly sent to me by Lit NXT for the purpose of review. So I didn't know that Amberlich was sending me this one, so when Lit NXT asked if I wanted one, I said yes, and then they both arrived at my door, and now I'm in the awkward position where I need to make a video and I don't know who I should give the shout out to. So there's links for both of these guys in the description below, and I'll just let you choose which one you check out. And now we'll move on to a segment that I call The Numbers You'll Forget in 2 Minutes. This bad girl is rocking the Dimensity 8300 processor, and it has an integrated Mali GPU, 12 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM, it's 256 gigabytes of UFS 4.0 internal storage, it's running Android 14, and you get Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3, and the battery is 5,500 milliamp hours. The screen is a 5.5-inch AMOLED screen with a resolution of 1920 by 1080. Oh, and by the way, while we're talking about the screen, I need to mention that you're going to see screen flickering in this video. This screen is hard to film there. Now, I had to press it with my camera, and this is the best I can do. But the screen does not look like this in real life, just here in fake life. If I had a nickel for every retro handheld that used this exact layout, I'd have lots of nickels. Probably enough to buy a retro handheld, actually. On the front, we have that big old 5.5-inch AMOLED screen, and a left stick in the upper configuration, and you do that under that. Down here is a function button, Android back at home, and on the right we have some buttons and a stick under those. And start and select down here. Up top we have a couple of bumpers and a couple of triggers, and a power button, volume up and down, and some holes. Nothing on the sides, and around back there's some more holes. I don't know what they're for. I'm terrible at my job. Underneath, we have 2 downward-firing speakers and a sneaky trapdoor with an SD card hole inside, and a headphone hole and a USB-C hole for both video out and charging the device. And speaking of charging, this video is sponsored by Ugreen and their Nexo's 4-port 100-watt fast charger.
It's petrified, so it's probably not sticky.
In the collective paths of the modern breed, survival depends on power. First, is he satisfied? The phone cries out. Not a problem. Oh, that's a second phone? Curious. Why you have 2 phones? Still, no trouble. Surely the mighty Ugreen Nexo 100-watt charger cannot handle a handheld gaming device as well. This compact model, 4 devices fed simultaneously, safely, and reliably. Also, it is said that if you connect the 100-watt max output port, it can charge the MacBook Air M2 to 55% in just 30 minutes. Silent as a mother red-crested mountain baboon cradling her young on the rocky cliffs of Uganda, the Ugreen Nexo 100-watt charger tends to its 4 precious charges with the fierce devotion that only a mother can give. Check the description to save 31% during Ugreen Brand Day deals and feed your hungry gadgets the power they crave. When I first opened this and got it in my hands, I felt 2 things. 1, I felt sad because I was out of chips, and 2, I realized I opened it upside down, and then I was immediately blown away. Look at the shape of this thing. It's obviously shaped like Finn from Adventure Time. Do you know what this means? Of course you don't, but I'll tell you. This means that Amberlich loves Adventure Time. Proven by science. Go on, Finn. Say it. Say the thing.
Mathematical!
And speaking of Adventure Time, the hand feel of the 557 is a double-edged sword. Finn has a sword. On the one hand, it's amazing in the the sense that it's super overwhelming. This might be one of the most comfortable handhelds that I own. However, the bad part of the hand feel is that it doesn't feel high quality. This might be subjective, but I find it kind of cheap here. These seams around the edge down here aren't very nice. They don't line up perfectly, and they end up feeling kind of scratchy. This is the kind of thing that would be fine on a sub-$100 handheld, but this isn't a sub-$100 handheld. And I kind of wish that it felt better than it does. To be clear, that's a minor gripe. Overall, I do like the look of it and the hand feel. It's super comfy, and I can game on this for hours. And I did, and I survived, so you'll probably find it pretty good too. The controls are overall pretty great. The D-pad and the buttons are a bit on the stiff side. I have no issues with the D-pad inputs, no false diagonals, but easy to hit the diagonals when you want to. Apart from the stiffness, which did take a bit of getting used to, it was totally fine for fighting games. The stiffness on the buttons meant that sometimes when I pressed kind of soft, like when my dweeby little fingers just couldn't muster enough pressure, and it wouldn't register the press, so I'd have to press it with a tad more enthusiasm. Sort of like if there was a little gummy bear under the buttons there. A sad little gummy bear, living his worst life. The sticks. I've heard lots of complaints about the sticks. I mean, people saying they're too small, but maybe there's something wrong with me. Oh, I mean, there's lots of things wrong with me, but maybe there's something wrong with me about stick size, because I actually kind of love these sticks. I think they feel amazing, and I like that they're small. The caps feel nice at that size, and I don't feel like I'm missing out on any sort of movement. I like them. They feel great to me, and you get great quality inputs too. One last thing I'll say about the controls is that they're pretty darn quiet. Not silent, but the buttons and the D-pad are nice and stealthy. The bumpers are a tad clicky, but they are quiet compared to lots of handhelds. Definitely quieter than the Retro Pocket 5. The screen is, really freaking good. It's OLED, it's 5.5 inches, it's super bright with rich creamy colors and dark leafy blacks. It's bright enough that I can play it outside, and it gets dim enough that I can play it in bed next to all the girls in my bed every night. I don't want to wake the girls. You know, it's 1080p, so you get plenty of pixels to work with. At 5.5 inches, that's super sharp. So you can run most retro systems with integer scaling, and the image will still be nice and big. And you can upscale your GameCube and PS2 or whatever up to 1080p to get those nice and crisp. The only downside is that the screen has PWM flickering, which you can see on the video, but you cannot see this with your eyeballs. Apparently, some people are sensitive to this, and it gives them headaches or whatever, but I have no issue. I played with this all day yesterday, and I survived. And the sound is, it's alright.
Starting at $399.99. Some say you can't have it all. Clearly, they've never been here. Here, every world, every story is too good to miss. This is where Unbelievable shows up to play. This place, it's different from the rest. Once you're in it, there's no going back. Play the Unmissable on PlayStation 5.
Day one, and you've already left a mark. And a stain. Shut the fridge door. You've earned emos. Get more out of your newest obsession. Buy one, get one half off crave-worthy Crunch Emos. Order online or on the Emos Pizza app.
Not great, but not terrible. It's loud enough, and it gets as quiet as you'd expect for an Android doodad, and the video out works good too, as you would expect. It's a 1080p output signal, and you can use this like a home console when you have it connected to your TV. No surprises, which is exactly how I like my retro handhelds. And my oatmeal. Android handhelds are awesome because they're super powerful, battery friendly, and they can run Android games and PC stuff and stream your Steam backlog they'll never finish. But the catch is that you gotta set them up yourself. That's one of the reasons I've heard that people like AmberLick devices. They're high-end Android devices, and they come preloaded, all set up and ready to rock. I've got the 256 gigabyte card here, so let's see how plug and play it really is. And spoiler alert, it's a mess. The Amberlick launcher is functional but janky and also ugly. The ROM sets are a disaster. Duplicate games and missing games, ROM hacks mixed in with the regular games, foreign language games, bad file names, no alphabetical order. It's like someone tripped and dumped a hard drive full of ROM files into a folder and said, well, yeah, that's fine, good enough. You do get games, a bit PSP and DS and some Wii, even some Wii U. That's wild, but no GameCube, which confused me. No GameCube on there. And the PS2 selection is just weird. 3 Silent Scope games, but no Tony Hawk's or Battlefront 2. What dark timeline is this? It comes with scraped art on some of the games, but most of the games don't have scraped art. RetroArch is a custom Frankenstein version that works fine, but it's a little bit weird, and the standalone emulators all need fixing, like turning off the on-screen buttons and combining the controls and use the switch load. So yeah, you can get the pre-loaded version and avoid setting it up yourself, but it's so janky that you'll end up fixing everything anyway. And at that point, you might as well be doing yourself from scratch. And maybe that's the way to save yourself from this madness. Once I wiped out all the stock stuff and I Android SD card in there to do my own setup, everything got way better. I installed all my favorite emulators, Internet Trails, which is ESTP. I linked it to my game library and suddenly it wasn't I felt like just another Android handheld. That's what I like in an Android handheld. But it feels like my other handhelds. ESTE makes it feel like a proper retro handheld. Fun and clean and organized. I threw in RetroArch for the older stuff, Dolphin for GameCube, Citra for 3DS, ATSX2 for PS2, PPSSPP for PSP, and a tangled web of questionable Switch emulators, as one does. It's Android 14, which is nice, and Amberlick have given us some quick options to do things like enable a high performance mode and to change the fan and the RBG on the sticks and to calibrate the sticks. It's not as polished as something as like a Retroid device, but this gets the job done. One thing that you've probably heard about is that this device out of the box probably comes with an older version of the firmware with older drivers on there. So if you get this, you should update it right away because you get some better compatibility and performance after the update. This is a higher end Android doodad, which means that you're gonna buy this to play not just the older stuff, but also higher end stuff like PSP and Dreamcast and Saturn, and also GameCube and PS2, and some hit or miss Switch on top of it, and maybe Windows emulation, although I haven't when it comes to that stuff, the gaming performance is honestly fine. Some reviews of this thing say it's really good, and some say it's subpar. And none of them are wrong. We're on a Dimensity 8300 processor here with a Mali GPU, so the compatibility won't be as good as something like the Retro Power 5 with the Snapdragon CPU, but it's still an overall great experience despite the intermittent quirks. The only exception is maybe the Switch, because lots of Switch emulators on here don't have the compatibility that they do on Snapdragon chips, and you can't use the custom drivers like the Black Mesa Turnip drivers. And most Switch does play fine on here, if you shop around for which emulator works best for which game, so it's not like you can't play Switch on here. And one other thing is PS2. Considering the performance that you get on GameCube, which is amazing, you'd expect PS2 performance to keep up, but it's a bit worse than you'd expect. You're not going to be able to play every PS2 game upscale. In the highest end, hardest to run games, you're going to have to dip into the underclocking settings and lower the resolution, and some games won't be able to run at all, no matter what you do. However, again, you can still have a ton of fun playing PS2, and even the highest end Android devices can't play every PS2 game. So don't feel like you're missing out on a whole realm of emulation or anything. And we get quite a bit more power here than on something like the RP5. It's more like on a Snapdragon chip like the RP5, you might get better compatibility but worse performance, and on the 557 it's the opposite. Better performance but worse compatibility. So it's a toss-up there, to be honest. However, there are some good reasons to pick the 557 over the RP5, which we'll talk about. As always, my favorite stuff to play on here is the older stuff. However, since this is a widescreen and beautiful OLED display and kind of a larger handheld, my definition of older stuff stuff extends up to PSP and Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast and Saturn. And even GameCube, I can play most GameCube games upscaled to 3x resolution, and only the very hardest games do I ever need to like mess with the settings or whatever. And it plays Android games good, and the controller is detected in some games, but it's not a Xbox controller, so some games don't like it. And I couldn't get the on-screen I wrestled with this for a couple minutes, and maybe I could have got it working if I wrestled with it for a few more minutes. Maybe it's gonna work for you. I don't know. And the game streaming, I use this to stream from my gaming PC, and I had a great time. If you wanted a super comfy, nice and big handheld with an amazing screen to do some streaming, this will serve you very well. I didn't do any extensive battery tests, and it's not because I was lazy, and I'm offended that you would suggest such a thing, but I did record some quick battery drain figures, and using science, I extrapolated the results and recombobulated the findings into some numbers. And I will now read those numbers to you. In my worst case scenario, which is running a PS2 game with frame throttle disabled, I calculated 2 hours and 15 minutes of game time. In my middle case scenario, which is running a Dreamcast game upscaled to 1080p, I calculated a bit under 4 hours of game time. And in the best case scenario, which is running a GBA game, I calculated 8 hours and 10 minutes of game time. So pretty average battery life results, really. The one big benefit is that this has 27-watt fast charging, so this charges up quick. That's a nice feature. It kind of eliminates some of the battery anxiety, knowing you can top it up a good amount while you go watch a Tech3 video while you poop. So should you buy the RG557? And more importantly, should you buy that instead of a Retro 5 or in some ways, it's kind of an unfair comparison because these are all such different devices. The RP5 is much more pocket-friendly, it's less powerful, but it's probably a great quality. It's a lot bigger, expensive, but when I consider the retro handheld landscape, I see no reason that the RG557 can't slot right in between the RP5 and the Odin 2. It's about middle in terms of price, and I think it's a fine choice. I can see myself grabbing this just as often as my RP5, if not more often, just because it's so comfy to use. And it's fast and it's pretty, it runs every retro game that I'd be throwing at it without breaking a sweat. Is it overkill just for playing WarioWare for the 87th time? Maybe. Do I care? Absolutely not. And that concludes this rigorous Tech3 Labs investigation. The science thing that I did. Yes, it counts as science. But like all good science, we need some peer review. So please, in the comments, let me know what you think of the RG557.
Anyone over in the death house, Hawks here, I'm at cell block T. The inmates, it looks like a lot of them gone for themselves. It's got it anarchy here. Lucas lost his sorting mind. What's the status over there? Copy?
Microsoft's Xbox 360 is already one of the greatest consoles of all time. And somehow, someway, you can make it even better. And
anyone over in the death house, Hawks here, I'm at cell block T. The inmates, it looks like a lot of them gone for themselves. It's got it anarchy here.
Lucas lost his sorting mind.
What's the status over there? Copy? Hello?
Okay, man, okay. Here we go. We have a game for you today.
Anyone over in the death house,
This is
Hawks here, I'm at cell block T. The inmates, it looks like a lot of them gone for themselves. It's got it anarchy here. Lucas lost his sorting mind. What's the status over there? Copy? Hello? Anyone over in the death house, Hawks here, I'm at cell block T. The inmates, it looks like a lot of them gone for themselves. It's got it anarchy here. Lucas lost his sorting mind. What's the status over there? Copy? Hello?
Hey, this is Sam, otherwise known as Kaiser, at Night Studios. I'm the,
Anyone over in the death
years, we've only had one plan. To make sure you keep yours.
Show me the photo from last April with Mia and
Instantly. Protected by Knox Vault, every precious detail is encrypted and locked down tight, so that your data stays safe. Feel free to explore your memories and stay confident. Your privacy secured.
Gonna bleed ya.
Microsoft has just been stepping in voodoo on the Windows side of things, pretty much left and right lately. They had their fiasco recall last year,
which they've just kept.
Windows, we've got a video coming soon comparing original recall and new recall, and it is better, but it's still deeply problematic.
Nice.
Windows has just blown the mess lately, dude. I had to go through the initial setup wizard recently, and it's just like, can I just use my computer? You don't need to know if I need it for entertainment or media or game. I mean, all of it. Just move.
Windows device setup is...
Get out of the way. None of this matters.
I really like late 2000s. New device setup was kind of a cool experience. And now it just sucks. I don't know about MacBook. I haven't done it. But the Windows laptop setups.
And then meanwhile, Date 2D compared to identical version Go Passes, one with Windows 11 and the other with SteamOS. The SteamOS version outperformed its Windows counterpart by, I gotta say, a shocking amount. Like, I remember not that long ago when Windows consistently was faster than Linux for gaming. That is no longer the case. Spider-Man 2 out of Cyberpunk, you're gonna have to go check out the video if you want the exact numbers, because it's these numbers. But out of Cyberpunk, Helldivers 2, Doom Eternal, Spider-Man 2, and Witcher 3, one of them was a win for Windows 11 compared to SteamOS, and just barely. Like, I'm talking by like run-to-run variance, 1 frame per second difference. And this is in spite of the fact that we're dealing with the Proton compatibility layer. Like, that is mind-blowing. That's how far Linux drivers have come, and that's how much less overhead SteamOS offers compared to Windows. Not to mention that the SteamOS version of Illusion OS, you're not paying for Windows. So it's over $100 cheaper at retail, according to this video. We also saw a similar performance delta in a video from Random Gaming HD's video comparing an identical system running both Windows 10 and SteamOS. So in this case, it was a desktop system with a 12400F processor, 16 gigs of RAM, 6500 XT GPU, and a 256 gig NVMe SSD. SteamOS once again, this time in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Black Myth Wukong, and Forza Horizon 4. CS2 was a win for Windows. But, I mean, SteamOS got over 150 FPS, so it's not like it's really an issue anyway. Meanwhile, in other Windows gaming news, Microsoft is apparently temporarily sidelining their rumored Xbox handheld gaming device to focus on optimizing the Windows 11 gaming experience, especially for mobile devices. Their cloud gaming device and ROG Ally 2 collab seem to be unaffected. This is, I don't know, good news? I don't know what it is. Because on the one hand, it's not like Microsoft clearly is incapable of building a streamlined, low-overhead operating system for gaming. Literally, that's what runs on the Xbox. But whether Windows has just gotten too bloated, or whether they've been unfocused, or whether their partners are not delivering on the driver quality that they need, and they're probably not that as much. It's clear that Windows gaming has got like they can't figure it out, can they?
My lack of enthusiasm for this, I think, is based around like practically every time that they've tried to touch it, they've just either done nothing or made it worse, as far as my understanding goes.
They've done some cool stuff. I mean, remember back...
Gaming mode was worse, if you remember.
I'm not talking about gaming mode, but remember Vista had that, like...
Dude, okay, when's the launch date of Vista, bro?
I'm just saying.
January 30th, 2007!
Okay. In Vista...
It's been almost 20 years.
In Vista, there was a My Games folder that consolidated the location of all your game, like, config files and save files and everything.
I remember that.
This was back before cloud save was just a thing you could take for granted in every game. And it was super useful because when you reformatted or whatever, you could just grab that folder, make sure you back it up, and dump it into that folder again on the new system, except for the games that didn't put their stuff in there. Those ones you had to go hunting for, so it still kind of sucked. But yeah, Microsoft just can't. I mean, Games from Windows Live seemed well-intentioned.
What happened to that folder?
But was horrible. Yeah, the folder went away. Games from Windows Live went away. Not we're happy about it.
We're stoked on it.
Yeah, we're pretty.
Except it didn't fully go away.
I mean, mostly, yeah. Like
the ways that it was bad back when are gone, but they still have their like Microsoft login, which is you were talking the other day about how it just like it makes you re-log in or something.
So what happens is I don't know if it's specifically dungeons or something, but because we would often go months between playing it, my kids and I like played Minecraft Dungeons. So yeah, it's kind of fun. So we go sometimes months between playing. So I would have to log in 4 accounts, and for some reason, mine was bugged, so that and of course your password manager doesn't work properly with like a pop-up inside the game. Yeah. So sometimes the game would get bugged, so the prompt like wouldn't show up in the pop-up, and you'd have to like go delete some config file to get it to show up. And then when it would show up, for some reason, something to do with my account, whether it's because it's like an LMG account, or whether it's because it's like a parent account or something, I don't know. But if I typo my password, that's it. I have to reset my password. There's no like go back and try again, nothing. It immediately goes, you need to reset your password. If I enter it wrong one time.
I enter your passwords wrong.
Well, yeah, because my passwords are long and have special characters and stuff. So I'm at the point now where when I enter my Microsoft password, I'm like, finger peck to make sure that I get it right, because I don't mind changing my passwords once in a while. It's a good security practice. What I don't like is changing my passwords all the time, especially when they're ones that I use every day, and I do kind of try to memorize because it's more convenient than authenticate the app and then navigate. I hate password managers. So where were we going with this? Right? Yeah, gaming on Windows is an absolute dumpster fire. Dude, the fact that it takes like 10 minutes to go from like first opening the game to actually driving a car in Forza is.
I was just gonna bring up Forza because I actually really liked Horizon 5. And it's the first racing game in a very long time. I was like, I want my friends to complete this game. I convinced one person to buy the game and play with me. I am very lucky that they had a great time being single player. Because playing with the multiplayer just didn't work. And I just stopped recommending the game to all my friends. Because I was like, we can't play together anyways, so they'll either find it themselves or whatever. And it was purely because of like Microsoft's junk matchmaking and login stuff. You try to play Halo. Steam or your phone, or you play your phone, login. Well, invite people to party, do things, show up. Things don't work like a huge percentage.
Working, but like you can't see it. And they all know that seeing the avatar is the whole point anyway, so they can sell more skins. So get it right, Microsoft.
How does that part not work? I don't know. It's
to be clear, I'm rooting for Microsoft to fix this. Like, I'm super into it. Competition is good. I don't want a Steam-OS monopoly in gaming any more than I want a Windows monopoly in gaming. That's not healthy either. I want this fixed.
especially because there's always going to be edge cases that, you know, Proton compatibility layer can't fix. You know, older games or whatever the case may be. Like, I want Windows to be a robust gaming platform. I'm starting to lose hope. And this is interesting. The battery life testing was fascinating. Dave's video is called "Windows Was the Problem All Along," and the full load tests are not that interesting. You know, the battery life when you're really running everything full tilt, relatively similar. I mean, not the same, you know, not the same at all, but relatively, at least within the same sort of
Windows
area. But when you're running like lower, less demanding, like side-scroller type games, SteamOS absolutely steamrolls Windows, like to a degree that I wouldn't have thought was possible.
We'll get more into that natural section, but I was playing Final Fantasy VI on the laptop, and I was very it's not gonna last very long. I'm playing Final Fantasy VI, dude. Like, come on. Yeah, Windows battery life is so big.
Like, you could run that game on a watch. Yeah, easily these days. Oh man, I have my own issues trying to I'm finally, okay, this should give you some idea of how deep in the game backlog is. I finally picked up Psychonauts 2. Yeah, it's been a bit. Anyway, point is, I bought it back when it came out, so so they got my money, yeah. So I supported the game. I loved Psychonauts 1. It was awesome. Anyway, so I finally picked it up, and my laptop was running it great. This thing has 4070 or something like that, right? Like a pretty powerful GPU considering this and the flexible form factor. So I've got it all like set in front of me, and I've got tent mode, and I decided, and I regret this, but I decided when I was holding my Ally and my laptop and a controller, I was like, I have to bring my laptop anyway. So why don't I just game on my laptop? Yeah, why bother? They both support my external GPU thing with the 4080 or 4090 or whatever in it, the XG Mobile. So why wouldn't I just bring my laptop? That ended up not working out great at all. So first of all, when I tried to use my XG Mobile, I tripped the breaker on the airplane plug. So I wasn't able to use my external GPU anyway, because I guess it draws too much power, so that was irritating.
My laptop's pretty low power.
Yeah, but that's fine, because I actually have a decent GPU on this thing anyway. But then, when I wanted to, so I was able to pair my controller, everything, that was fine. But this is hilarious. I was on the plane's Wi-Fi, and I guess we were flying China Air, because we were going over to Taiwan, and somehow the game, okay, I don't know how this happened, okay, I have no idea, but I'm guessing that somehow the network that I was connected to picked up my time zone or location or something, and somehow the game picked that up, and I was speeding through the initial setup menus, and I accidentally selected Chinese for the language of the game, which normally wouldn't be that big of a deal, but seriously, Google this, I'm not imagining it. Psychonauts 2 varies the language configuration in the accessibility menu, instead of just having it kind of obvious.
Usually it's like
if you're fighting your way, to try to change the bloody language. And because my phone wasn't actually connected to the internet, I couldn't just use Lens to translate it unless I bought another stupid Wi-Fi flight pass. Because they figured out my trick. So I had this hack that I used to use on airplanes to share one Wi-Fi access across all my devices. Windows is actually super cool. Supports mobile hotspotting from Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi. So lots of other devices support being connected to a landline and then sharing and tethering over Wi-Fi, or being on 5G and tethering over Wi-Fi or whatever. But Windows supports sharing a Wi-Fi connection. I'm going to get to that topic here. Anyway, somehow they've kind of figured that out, I guess, and they've done something with the Wi-Fi connection on most of the flights that I've been on recently that makes Windows think you're not connected. So the little globe in the corner is all like, nope, you're not connected. And then that grays out the mobile hotspot sharing thing. You can't force it, even though your connection totally works. And I couldn't find, I looked up guides, and I wasted most of, not most of, but I wasted a bunch of my expensive flight pass Wi-Fi trying to figure out how to bypass the blocks that they have on my expensive flight pass Wi-Fi. If anyone knows how to fix that, I'd be super open to it. Anyway, what did Top Gear say? Oh shoot, I lost the comment I was reading to. Oh yeah, Top Gear says change the config file in Psychonauts. It doesn't work. So they have a guide that I googled and found that if you want to change it to, I think it's French or German or something like that, you go in the config file and you just put language that, and then it will change to that language. But it doesn't appear to work for English, because I guess the assumption is just that it was already English and you were trying to change it to I don't know, but it didn't work. So anyway, I eventually managed to change it, and I was gaming, and then the lights on the plane went out because it was like nighttime, time to sleep, and I went to adjust the brightness of my screen, and for some reason, whether it's because I'm using a third-party application now instead of Armory Crate on this thing, like it's, I forget what it's called, but it's super cool. Basically, it takes all of the nightmare of Armory Crate and boils it down to this tiny little interface here. Yeah, here it is, G-Halter. That's what it's called. See there? It takes all of Armory Crate, takes all of Armory Crate and makes it this, which is awesome. And like Armory Crate, with the actually the external GPU, will sometimes get bugged. You like plug it in, but it won't prompt you to activate it, or like it's plugged in and it won't prompt you to deactivate it, and like it's not safe to literally gripped a mobile GPU back. Remember when you click on it and it unplugged the mobile GPU, and unplug it expectedly? I think that one literally died. Because I have that working in there. So it really matters. So anyway, this lets you just override it. It just has a button, and you'd be like, XG Mobile, and it always works. So I don't know if it's because of this or because of something else, but I can't adjust my brightness when it's plugged in. So in the dark of the plane, I have like glowing. The power of the sun beaming into my eyes, and then if I wanted to try to game on battery, dude, I'd have gotten less than an hour, for sure. Like less than an hour out of this thing if I was actually trying to play a full fat 3D game. Maybe more than an hour, but like this is like a 10-hour flight. So I was like, well, I have nothing but bad options. I wish I just brought my stupid handheld. I forget what we were supposed to be talking about.
I think we're just complaining about Windows.
Oh yeah, so that, well then I was doing great. Good job, Linus.
I will also bundle in that complaining about Windows means kind of complaining about the state of Windows laptops, because that's sort of what you're doing right now. And I will re-bring up what I now know is probably called the screen locking problem that I have with my laptop.
Someone on the subreddit said it might be to do with your attention. Yeah, this.
I haven't had a chance to actually do this, because this was, I was in the air by the time this was.
Okay, there's you.
So I haven't had a chance to do it, but this makes so much sense.
Yeah, so this is a thing where, like, if you look away from the laptop, it breaks the screen.
But here's my problem.
Yeah.
I just think it basically doesn't work at all. That's my current stance. Because it can be daytime, and I'm staring right at it, and it will just lock. It can be nighttime, and I have something covering the webcam, and it will work just fine for like an hour, and then lock.
It's a fine line, dude. Because as a company like Microsoft, you have to give your partners room to differentiate their products.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might as well be Apple, right? You end up with no innovation. But you also have to just like keep the leash at a reasonable length, because they're just going to do this so stupid.
And my biggest problem with what this is? It doesn't tell you at all.
Right.
Like if you know, I slept the computer, woke it back up so that I could actually use it again, and then there was like a little boom, and in the corner it was like, by the way, that was us.
But then you
And it
don't
would
have
be
to happen
like,
every
well, I
time.
could turn this off if I want to. I could also at that point in time say, don't
What am I doing
don't say
wrong?
about this again. But it would be really sick if it told me at least one time. Because again, I haven't had time to change this setting. I pretty much guarantee you this is the actual problem. So like, no, I haven't tested it, but it makes so much sense that this would be it. Especially because I ran into the Hardware Canucks guys while I was at Computex.
Oh, yeah.
And one of them told me that they saw that bit on the show. They have a very similar version of a Lenovo laptop that had the exact same problem.
Okay, so it's probably that then.
Yes.
Probably the screen.
So now I have to go around and like tell everyone that I know that has this laptop. And a bunch of people have reached out being like, yeah, I have the same stupid problem. I thought about returning it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, Lenovo, do you understand? Like, everyone thinks you suck. And it's just a software setting. Like, people think your laptops suck and are broken. And that's not even the case.
Dude,
Outside of that, I love that laptop.
the amount of product problems that are caused seemingly by just nobody at the company actually using the product is mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
Or it's a problem where you have an overly informed expert.
Yeah, or that.
They know what this is.
Like,
So they just do it.
Yvonne is doing an iPhone challenge right now. So she just switched over to iPhone. And getting the WhatsApp backed up and migrated to Android and iOS is like inexcusably broken. The fact that has, so she lost a bunch of message history. I lost a bunch of message history, even though I mostly know what I'm doing. Like it will say it's backed up. It will tell you what Google account it's backed up to, and then you go to the store and it's like missing a bunch of stuff because there's like a specific way you have to do it. When you're migrating between devices, we have to scan the QR code. So I think we screwed up because the QR code was there and I was trying to scan it, but the camera was like blurry, and there was no alternative. You have to scan the QR code. There's no other way. And then I wasn't able to do it, so I lost like 4 months of my message history because that part wasn't like backed up on that phone yet or something. I had to restore from one other thing, and their backups are just broken. It's infuriating. Don't worry about my tennis elbow. I am intentionally moving it. I'm not doing anything in weird positions. I'm okay. And this is just like a massage thing. It's fine. Yeah.
That made me think of something else I want to bring up, but I'm not going to tangent us at this time, so I just added the note.
Hurts, but it's stronger. All right, what are we supposed to be doing?
Windows scripting to do?
No,
or should we jump
I'm
into
ready
something
to.
else?
I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to move on from Windows in general. If it wasn't for anti-cheat and just like application compatibility lock-in, I don't see why I would use it anymore.
If I could get away from multiple games that I play when I'm working on Windows, and like genuinely right now, if I could get away from that, I would switch.
Maybe it's time for a Linux challenge again.
Another one?
Maybe it's time. I keep telling myself I'm gonna wait for SteamOS. Like the broad, and it's coming. Like they have an installer that is now validated for non-Valve handhelds, and it does work on desktops. As long as you've got a compatible desktop, which I kind of do actually. I think I have like a 79. This SteamOS actually Halo 50X and does it website? Does it offer anything? It offers Visual Go, which
you can still install it. Like there's no special installs just for SteamOS.
not that I'm aware of. Yeah, you should be able to have the full SteamOS experience on something else pretty much, as long as you're willing to kind of configure it a little bit. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and that's fine. We use different distros on the
We totally did that.
I was trying to evaluate my settings and I just wanted to start link again because right, but then I want to
you should be able to, like, realistically, you have more software troubleshooting capabilities than I do, so I would definitely need to work with more set and forget, ready to go Linux distro.
Also, like, I don't know how this works, but even with like a 6-year gap kind of want to go back to that thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
Blasphemy Law introduced the Britain. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Hot Takes, and welcome back to the Middle Ages. Welcome back to the Dark Ages. Welcome back to...
You might think you know the story. In the early 90s, someone named and
they said was... So I used to be doing the dark thing. Alright.
Joel Isaiah Alvarado is probably the most interesting player in Smash history. He's won a major tournament in 2005 at the age of 19, and he's also won a major tournament in 2023 at the age of 38. He's the only player in Smash history to be so good that he would have to intentionally handicap himself at major tournaments in order to make it more interesting, and he would still win. He's considered one of the greatest players of all time in multiple Smash games, including being considered the greatest Smash 64 player of all time. Now, while Isaiah is known as a legendary 64...
You guys ready to race? Liz and I are like winning here. I'm right behind you.
First? No!
This PC is powered by Snapdragon X Series platforms. That PC isn't. What's the difference? Here's a little intel on what's really inside. This PC runs at max performance when it's unplugged. That PC drops to as little as 55%. In fact, this PC is the fastest with multi-mode battery. While that PC is getting left behind. Snapdragon X Series, max performance that you deserve.
As a melee player in the 2000s, as competitive 64 wasn't really as much of a thing as when it first started. In fact, he was one of the pioneers of modern Captain Falcon and Melee, and he was incredibly ahead of his time. Extremely old videos of him playing versus Ken and other top players from all the way back in 2005 show him incorporating advanced techniques into his gameplay, such as shield dropping, ASDI, SDI, ledge dashing, and even backslashing, a technique which was literally named after Captain Falcon player Pax, and he did this 7 years before he was even called Pax Dashing. While commonplace now, these techniques weren't widely used at all until way after 2005. But despite his clear talent for Melee, Isaiah didn't really care or have the motivation to be the best. In fact, he's basically the Smash pioneer for what is now known within the community as sandbag. Sandbagging is the act of going into a match and essentially not trying your hardest to win it, either by picking a bad character that you're not well versed with.
Oh no! I feel like you gave up. What the hell's gave up? No way.
Straight up trolling, or just basically not trying. And Isaiah was infamous for this.
I don't believe you, Isaiah.
Now, sandbagging is actually relatively controversial. While it can lead to some hilarious moments, it's known to occasionally cause frustration from tournament organizers, spectators, and opponents, especially if they actually lost to the person that was sandbagging.
Oh, no handshake. He's mad, dude.
But people typically didn't get mad at Isaiah because he wasn't doing this to disrespect or anything along those lines. He just legitimately didn't seem to care. In fact, he's one of the biggest what-if stories in Melee history, as generally when he would give it his all, him and Ken, the king of Smash, and the best player of the 2000s, would go even, where Isaiah would come out slightly ahead. It always has, and probably always will be, a hotly debated topic as to how good he really would have been if he actually cared about it and had the drive of someone like Lucifer, for example. By far the best example of just how good Isaiah is when he actually tries is his performance in the other doubles. Doubles isn't really taken as seriously nowadays, but at the time, he was actually considered to only be slightly less important than singles. But singles is only versus one, doubles is of course to this two. And with every player having a teammate, this changes the dynamic of sandbagging significantly. While sandbagging in singles isn't super common, sandbagging in doubles definitely is. It isn't typically done unless both players are good, as by sandbagging doubles, you also drag down your teammate with you, who possibly wants to try to win. So Isaiah notably would virtually never sandbag in doubles or two-downs. So Isaiah and Ken, his doubles partner, would win each and every time. This was probably the strongest doubles team of all time, as it was the two best players in the world, and it was an actual dedicated team with great chemistry, as opposed to just the two best players in the company team at that tournament. Isaiah and Ken doubles were insane. It was legitimately unfair. They're just so far above any other team at that time. But Isaiah in singles, however, is just so bizarre. He'll dominate one game and then get completely obliterated in the next three, while being unable to do basic things like wave dashing and recovering with Captain Falcon's up B. But when he did try, it was amazing. There's no question that when he did, he was the best player in the world. These moments, however, were extremely rare. He generally would need some sort of motivation in order for him to do it, like the famous Mel said at Most 3.
Because this girl was gonna be there, you know, her name is Melissa, so that's why you always had to tag Mel. And Melissa was actually cheering him on. And I really think like if she actually went to every tournament and supported Isaiah in like his singles career, he would probably be the best. I think he became Super Saiyan that tournament.
In fact, back in my compilation days, I actually made a video covering this. And there's so few examples that it's not even a top 10. It's a top 6. Isaiah's nonchalance towards Melee is made even more evident by his trademark quote, "Don't get hit." As with any good player, Isaiah was frequently asked by people that he would beat for advice on how they could do better. While some players might take this opportunity to go on a complicated, in-depth explanation on what the opponent should do, Isaiah would always respond simply with 3 words: "Don't get hit." This ended up becoming an extremely iconic phrase, and to me, this quote is the perfect representation of Isaiah's mentality and his attitude towards the game. So it was pretty clear that his part wasn't to Melee, but there was one thing he didn't do. While competitive Smash basically began with Melee, there was a Smash window in this prior, Smash 64. And since the start, Isaiah had loved this game. He was all about it. To Isaiah, despite all the talent he had for it, Melee was actually just secondary to 64. However, competitive 64 was extremely underground. While it was relatively popular in Japan, in fact it was actually more popular than Melee there. In the West, the game only really started having sizable tournaments in the early 2010s. And it wasn't just that he liked the game, he was also extremely good at it. He played literally every character on a regular basis, and he made countless discoveries and advanced the metagame for every single one. Just like he did in Melee with Captain Falcon. And early on, he was so good that there was basically no one that could even come close to him. And with how underground the game was, Isaiah had had very few people he could consistently play with. He got most of his practice against level 9 CPUs. With the insanely small number of people that played 64 at this point, let alone were actually good at it, Isaiah was always looking to find new players to face off against. And luckily, there were several places that featured small concentrations of extremely good players. In the entire world, there were 2 regions that were both extremely strong and where Smash 64 was their primary game, as the majority of regions in the late 2000s understandably were mostly playing either Melee or the recently released Brawl. One was the previously mentioned Japan, and the other was a small city in Peru called Tacna, which basically started as a small group between a bunch of competitive friends, who then eventually grew to become some of the best players in the world. Despite the fact that Isaiah resided very far away in California, his search for new players to face led to him visiting both regions from 2006 to 2011, with him visiting Japan multiple times and Peru once. Isaiah went and recorded footage of himself playing all of the best players of each region, where overall he completely dominated. But he also recorded matches of the players of these regions playing against each other, which was extremely significant with how scarce recording setups were at the time, and how little footage existed of these regions. Compared to nowadays, basically every single local is people basically just have to go off with memories of a specific region in order to know any details of the scene. In the contrast to seeing these matches, showcasing the insanely strong regions, facing off in some of the most intense high-level matches between themselves, and then the Isaiah matches where he, basically some random guy, just comes in from outside their scene and completely destroys them, is like something out of Reddit. However, my absolute favorite one came from when he went to Tacna in 2011. Smash 64 had this thing known as a 12-character battle. With 64 having the smallest cast of any Smash game, it weirdly doesn't allow for the luxury of the other Smash games. The ability to match against a player with every character in the roster in a reasonable amount of time. Hence why it's called a 12-character battle. Basically, you and your opponent can pick any character on the roster. Then you face off with one of the other players. Then that's no longer available without face off. And they're forced to pick another character on the roster, with any stocks they took from their opponent before losing carrying on to the next matchup. This continues until one player is completely out of character. Kind of like a one-on-one crew battle. And this is actually taken relatively seriously. It's considered to be the best test to show who the strongest and most well-rounded player is. These typically take about an hour or 2 to complete, depending on how close the 2 players are in skill. And this is only really commonly done in 64. While it has been done in Melee, where it's referred to as a full roster Iron Man, if the players were evenly matched, this would take forever, as Melee has over double the characters of 64. We're obviously trying to do this in Ultimate, which has over 7 times as many characters as 64, would probably take like a day. It's not reasonably doable. These 12-character battles are the reason that 64 players are generally the best with multiple characters out of any Smash game. There are very few one-trick ponies. Basically every high-level 64 player will be good with multiple other characters or the entire cast. And Isaiah was the king of this, with him beating some of the best players in the world on their best characters with absolutely terrible ones. Some of the worst in the game, with relative ease, including 12-character battles where he lets his opponents have their own main 12 times and he had the whole roster. Against players like Prince, one of the best Japanese players ever, and Mario, the best Mexican player, and he still won. in a 12-character battle. Now, I know what you're expecting. With the knowledge that you're currently watching a video highlighting Isaiah, you're probably expecting me to say something like he beat them pretty handily with several characters still remaining. Well, that's not what happened. Because he didn't beat them handily, he absolutely obliterated them, winning with not one, not two, not three, but 6 of 12 characters still remaining, including taking 20 stocks with Link alone, and 14 stocks with Yoshi. This is even despite the fact that at the start, Gerson actually beat Isaiah in the Pikachu dip, and then took 4 stocks off of his Kirby, leaving Isaiah pretty much without the 2 best characters in the game. But it didn't matter. This demolition was so severe, it actually had a subtle impact on Peru's reputation. As opposed to recognizing that Peru is extremely strong, Isaiah is not that good. Instead, many players just dismiss Peru as being overrated and not being as good as people were saying, and moved on. As this was actually the first time an international player had traveled to Canada to take a run, which obviously is a pretty rough first impression, but it is Isaiah. And it wasn't until Super Boom Fan and Mariblas traveled there in 2014 that the reputation of Peru being overrated started being disproven. As Mariblas, one of the best players in North America, with only 2 finished in last place. And Super Boom Fan, the best player in North America besides Isaiah, was double eliminated by Pikachu Player Market. This, still to this day, is maybe the most impressive display I've ever seen in any Smash game. It pretty decently sums up just how great it is. There being countless more examples very similar to this. If there is a legendary Smash 64 moment, there's a very good chance Isaiah is at the forefront.
Two apiece. Look at Reyes. He's pointing. Done.
It's pretty clear that he would have won basically any tournament, but he chose not to make it easy. While he liked entering and competing in tournaments, he didn't play them in the traditional ways. He favored challenging himself and having fun over winning. So he would often commit to picking low-tier characters for entire tournaments, no matter what.
How come you decided to switch to characters, and what was the choice behind DK? I'm playing DK today, so that'd be fun. Nice.
The characters that are considered viable in 64 and most capable of winning a major tournament, especially nowadays, are Yoshi, Fox, Falcon, Pikachu, and Kirby. But Isaiah would frequently dominate and win tournaments with low-tier characters, Link being one of his favorites. Now, Link is very bad, considered by some to be the worst character in the game, although Luigi and DK are also pretty rough. But Link genuinely has the worst recovery of any character in any Smash game, Little Mac included. And in general, even though 64 doesn't have any absolutely terrible characters like Melee or Brawl, as it has the most balanced cast of any Smash game besides maybe Project M, Link is as close to unplayable as it gets. However, they won a major tournament with Link. The biggest 64 tournament of all time at that point, with Solo Jigglypuff, the biggest two corporations of its and they didn't just handicap himself with his characters, they also handicap himself with stage selections. He beat early Apex Legends for the first time top Japanese players, especially in America, and was the incoming massive Olympics, and it all came down. Meaning you and your opponent face off in one game, and the winner of that game progresses in the tournament. Although Grand Finals was often best of 3. I actually love this format because this means every single game from round 1 of the bracket to Grand Finals is extremely high stakes. And this is part of the reason that most of the best Japanese players are known for being extremely clutch, as it's basically a requirement. And if the rule set wasn't enough, Japan also played on a version of the game that was vastly different, with the US version being released 3 months after it, and having a ton of changes. Similar to how until the late 2010s, Melee was played on both the NTSC and PAL versions of the game, depending on which region you were in. Some changes between these 64 versions weren't so significant, but others were extremely significant. And it's even harder to escape combos, something 64 is already infamous for, because DI is much weaker. They also made widespread changes that impacted the strength and viability of every character. And that's considered significantly stronger in the Japanese version, for example. So the difference in the game and the rule set would obviously be very different for any Japanese players. Isaiah, however, was too gentle. Even though he notably played Castle and would almost always counterpick to it, when he would face Japanese players, he would always counterpick the dream. At Apex 2013 in particular, Isaiah and Mario faced off against Japanese Kirby player Kikoshi in winners and grand finals. And across the 10 games they played, every single game was played on Dream. Isaiah eventually finished second after resetting the bracket 3-0 in the grand finals, and then losing 3-1 in the second set. Isaiah genuinely just loves 64 and wants to have fun, and he wants the exact same for his opponent. And although 64 does have an extremely dedicated community for its entire history even now, it's always been very small. And the major tournaments are incredibly infrequent. While Melee and Ultimate will have one big tournament a year featuring all or most of the best players, 64 will have one of the absolute most. And a lot of the time it won't even have all the top players from Japan in the group. And the 64 tournament can't really be considered the penultimate tournament unless it features both the top player from Japan and the top player from Peru. This is pretty similar to how for a lot of Melee's lifespan, a tournament couldn't really be considered penultimate either unless it featured all 5 gods. And while 4 of the 5 gods resided in various places across the United States, making it relatively easy for them to attend a North American event, Armada lived all the way across the Atlantic Ocean in Sweden, making it much more difficult for him to make it out to major tournaments. Fortunately though, Armada had the resources, including a and increased income from streaming and tournament winnings that allowed him to make it out to many major tournaments. And there have been 12 such tournaments with all 5 gods in attendance. 64, however, has never had that luxury. The massive distance between the best regions and the infrequency of the major tournaments, there have been very few tournaments that actually feature all of the best players. It's incredibly expensive to travel from Japan or Peru to the United States, paired with the fact that there's basically no money in being a 64 player, and in Japan, there is literally no money. As due to Japan's anti-gambling laws, Japanese 64 tournaments are not allowed to have prize pools. So the players generally either need to pay out of pocket or do crowdfunding. And there have been very few of these tournaments in 64's lifespan. In fact, it's only opened 4 times in the history of 64, all being in recent years, and all being at the major tournaments. The first 3 were won by the top player in Japan that respective year. With the third match was just last year, so we have now reached the modern era of 64. Times have changed. The level of competition and skill of 64 have increased massively, especially in North America. It wasn't just Isaiah on the top 5 ranks in argument. We even had new age players like Wizero actually competing and winning major tournaments.
And where can we find them on
by anyone that wasn't either Isaiah, Japanese, or Peruvian. And Isaiah was now 38-year-old and married at the young age, very far removed from the teenager he was for himself. But even despite all the time that had passed, his love for 64 still persisted. And with the level of play increasing so significantly, he actually decided to try, marking several tournaments where he would play exclusively high-tier characters and legitimately try to win. First making it to third place at Super Smash Con 2022, one of the 4 previously mentioned tournaments that featured both the top player from Peru and Japan, where he was eliminated in Game 5 of Losers Finals by Chilean player Nax.
Gets it up. Huge
These tournaments are an interesting experience. Isaiah clearly is giving it his all. He's actually showing legitimate emotion, shaking his head when he makes a mistake, and showing actual excitement when he gets a big win. This is pretty far from what his reaction used to be back in the day when he would achieve big wins, or when he accepted losses. Making it clear just how invested he now is into winning. And finally, Super Smash Bros. 3, the 4th instance of a tournament between both the top Japanese player and the top Peruvian.
Tell me about that.
Featured ranked 11, 13 on the first, on the second, 45th, and 48th players in the world without dropping a single hit. Yoshi players stranded and moved on to the next round to face Super Isaiah's first big test of the tournament. Even it cemented itself as the best player in North America prior to Isaiah's first place at Conference Major. 64 players being lost to characters is not so common for top players to just play one character for an entire tournament. 64 matches dropping from 92 counter battles. The rule set had also changed. It was no longer 4 stages. The stage was now always locked to Dreamland, and players that can play multiple characters are always trying to get the right level on each other.
Once the force the character change from 0, it's so
So since they can't counterpick the stage, it's not incredibly uncommon to see sets with character picks like this, for example. And a counterpick battle is exactly what happened in the set with how close in skill these players are. Isaiah opened with Pikachu and Boom with Kirby. Isaiah took game 1 with a timeout, and after 3 games, the match count was 2-1 in Isaiah's favor. But Boom switched over to Yoshi and completely wrecked Isaiah for game 4.
Oh, look at this beautiful, destructive
He was winning so hard, he was actually BMing despite still being down in the set.
Everybody plays it a little bit differently. Oh, look at this down, it's tall. You gotta feel yourself.
But it worked. Isaiah then counterpicked to Kirby for game 5, which is considered a very good counter to Yoshi.
This has Boom and
Anyone over in the death house, Ruby? Hawks here, I'm with so-called team. The inmates, it looks like a lot of them have gone over the handshell. It's got it anarchy here. Let's talk this sorting line. What's the status over there?
Played
Copy?
on Dreamland, there isn't the option to pick a stage that has no top platform like you can in every other Smash game. So in order for Yoshi to win, he has to find some way to overcome this, which is extremely difficult. And to counterpick especially in game 5, which is
Anyone over in the death house, Ruby? Hawks here, I'm with so-called team. The inmates, it looks like a lot of them have gone over the
His next matchup will put him up against Kiyoshi, one of the greatest 64 players of all time, the current number 2 in Japan, and the winner of one of the previously mentioned fantasy tournaments.
That's what you see.
Playing 5 games against Super Moonfan, and then immediately afterwards having to play a best of 5 against Kiyoshi is a Herculean task. And as was expected, the first 3 games of the set went down to the absolute wire.
I couldn't help but notice the accumulating
Isaiah clutched out every single game on the last stop to take the set 3-0. This put him in winners finals against Kuraba, the previously mentioned number 1 in Japan. This would be his toughest matchup. Kuraba was definitively the number 1 player in the world, and he was the winner of the previous Super Smash Cup. Now, while Isaiah had the Kirby counterpick from Yoshi, Kuraba's Yoshi was a full match, as he is a Yoshi solo main, and the 2 best Kirby mains of all time are Japanese. He has experience with both of them, and even just 1 month earlier, Kuraba had solidly 3-0 stacks, one of the best Kirby players in the world. From the very start, Kuraba had solid control of the game. He was turning every single opening into a stop. Isaiah's Kirby was getting completely dominated, and he was behind basically the entire set. He managed to barely squeak out Game 3.
Shield break! He gets it! The F smash right at the edge of the platform. Down tilt, and he gets it, and he stays alive in the winner's bracket.
But ultimately it didn't matter, and Kuraba took the set 3-1 to knock Isaiah down to the loser's bracket.
That's gonna be trouble. Crispy isn't gonna help him. That's gonna do it. Kuraba takes it.
Here he would face Boom's Yoshi in losers finals. And right off the bat, Isaiah made an interesting decision. Although he had handily beaten Boom with Kirby to clutch out the last set, and although Boom had beaten his Pikachu with Yoshi, Isaiah still decided to pick Pikachu. His loss against Kuraba had made him realize one thing. Kirby wasn't going to do it. If he was going to win this tournament, he was either going to do it with Pikachu or not at all. Boom started off by taking Isaiah's first stock in the first 10 seconds. But Isaiah responded by taking Boom's next 4 stocks without using any of his own. He then clutched out Game 2. And then took Game 3 to win the set in less than 1 minute, which isn't the fastest set ever by any means, but considering the fact that it was against Boom, while also being one of the best players ever, has a reputation for extremely long matches, this is actually insanely fast. With Isaiah making it to Grand Finals on the loser's side, everyone knew this was going to be an insanely difficult task. Kuraba had only dropped 3 games in the entire bracket on his way to Grand Finals, against some of the best players in the world, and Isaiah would have to beat him in 6 games across 2 sets in order to win the tournament. This was a huge uphill battle. But then, this happened.
And that's going to be the first
I keep thinking I've got strange prejudices.
Imagine she manifests without it having thought of just origin. My advice is to stay well away.
I'm not sure. I feel calm, confident, smart. If she kills me, you can complete the mission at my step.
I don't understand how you taste and discern. That's thaumaturgist magic. There aren't any tomes or masters who can teach that stuff anymore.
The how is irrelevant. The why is what worries me.
Well, sometimes people just change.
No, not that much.
No road, no problem. Go where no Mario Kart game has ever gone before. And compete against drivers on and off the track. Mario Kart World. Available June 5th, only on Nintendo Switch 2.
Recently, when compiling a list of my all-time favorite games, I ran into an issue when considering the potential inclusion of, ironically, one of my most played games of all time, Melee. I've spent thousands of hours playing this game, and it should be entirely obvious by now that I enjoy it a lot. So much so that I'd probably say it's the most fun game I've ever played, within the rules and confines of a community-created rule set with a community-curated stage list. And while it's true that these are rules that anyone could come up with and play on, and certainly part of Melee's base game despite not being the default, could I really consider Super Smash Bros. Melee one of my favorite games of all time if I've only enjoyed such a small portion of it? And after some careful deliberation, I've decided that the answer, in my opinion, is no. Here's how I thought of it. Would you consider Dark Souls 2 one of your favorite games if you thought the PvP was incredible? Or for a more apt comparison, Fight Club PvP, with set honor system rules stating that fights must always be 1v1, no healing items or Estus allowed, and that you must allow your opponent to buff before beginning the fight. Would you consider World of Warcraft one of your favorite games if the only part you enjoyed was min-maxing or twinking low-level characters to fight less geared players around your level? Or if you only enjoyed fair duels outside of Orgrimmar with no potions or buffs? I think most of you would agree with me that no. Despite enjoying these incredibly small parts of the game greatly, considering the game one of your favorites of all time because of these small parts would be strange, and perhaps even requires you to ignore greater flaws with the games in more significant areas. So, of course, the logical conclusion is to review and critique the game as a whole, 20 years late, with the added context of the modern world and the Smash games that came after it. The idea being that it'll get me lots of YouTube views and ad revenue, but also, maybe after giving the game as a whole an honest shot, scrutinizing every aspect of the game, I'll be able to confidently place it among my other favorite games, or instead find that the overall game hasn't held up well. Let's get started. I think it's important to begin with one of Melee's most unique, enjoyable, and, to most spectators, coolest aspects, its movement. This is obviously universal in Melee. Wave dashing, wave landing, dash dancing, shield dropping, and even more niche options like moonwalking. It's all there regardless of which mode you're playing on, or whether you're playing against a human or a computer. However, some of these techniques are difficult to learn, exacerbated by an almost entirely absent buffer system, making advanced techniques and even extremely basic actions like moving, aerials, and grounded moves extremely precise. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, buffer in a game refers to when the game reads your input before you can actually perform that move. For example, to perform a frame-perfect aerial in Brawl and Onwards, which have quite generous buffer systems, you simply press jump and the direction of the aerial you want to perform at the same time. Really no timing required. In Melee, however, the complete lack of buffer when doing this will result in either a smash attack or a jump with no aerial. The game doesn't keep track of what you input on your controller when it's in the middle of doing something else. Because of this, frame-perfect aerials in Melee are truly frame-perfect on behalf of the player. And this isn't just limited to aerials either. Almost nothing has buffer in Melee. There's no leeway, just you and your will to grind out the timing of the lag on every move you'll be performing to be done as fast as possible. This is quite understandably a turnoff to some people, especially those used to the buffer systems in place from not only Brawl onwards, but the majority of video games today. This is because game developers realized that pressing a button a few frames too early and having nothing happen would feel like complete shit to most players. I often see people coming into Melee from games like Smash 4 and Ultimate say the game feels clunky or unresponsive due to this, or that the game feels like it's eating their inputs. And starting out in 2016, I felt this way too. It was frustrating coming from the most recent Smash title, which was then Smash 4, to Melee. Funnily enough, despite being the fastest in the series, Melee's characters felt slow and cumbersome to control. In fact, the game kind of felt like complete ass, but I wanted to do cool stuff like I saw in GR Smash compilations, so I looked up tutorials and seriously practiced for months. I grew to enjoy the process of practicing and the visual improvement that came along with it. But the word practice isn't exactly what most people have in mind when playing video games. Especially a Nintendo game meant to be played by little kids. And it's not really a process some people want to go through just to be able to play the game at a level that even resembles competitive play. Even to those uninterested in playing like the pros, in the modern day, the lack of buffer is increasingly archaic and, frankly, unfun to work around at first. And if the game itself feels bad to play and you're uninterested in practicing to take advantage of what mechanics make Melee so special, what reason is there to play Melee when compared to games like Ultimate, which features far more characters, stages, items, collectibles, everything? Target test? Multi-man Melee? If you feel or have felt this way about Melee, I don't blame you. It's all completely valid criticism. Most games today have buffer, and like I said before, lack of it can seem extremely dated. But behind its precise control and buffer lies something incredibly fun and rewarding. Movement that can be exciting, meaningful, and flashy, all at the same time. Movement with such freedom and fine control that it far, far exceeds anything else in the series, or even most video games for that matter. If you've ever wondered why Melee players stick to their game instead of hopping to the current Smash Bros. Title, this is one of the reasons. Here are a few examples of movement options that make Melee's movements so fluid, fun, and fucking crazy. Edge-canceling aerials, which is exclusive to Melee and Smash 64, allows players to completely cancel landing lag by landing near an edge and sliding off of it before the move's lag would have ended naturally, allowing follow-ups and combos that are otherwise impossible. Melee's infamous wave dashing and wave landing are deep, multifaceted exploits that can be used in a myriad of ways, such as quickly sliding across the ground as a microspacing tool, mixing up basic movement, allowing characters to perform grounded moves while moving, closing or increasing distance while maintaining the same direction, or to quickly grab ledge, among other uses. Additionally, these techniques increase the depth of play with one of Smash Bros.' most distinctive aspects as a fighting game series: platforms. You can wave dash on platforms to land on them more quickly than if you were to jump on them, wave dash off of platforms to escape pressure out of your shield, quickly aerial at heights that would otherwise take much longer, or use it as a mix-up on your aerial, on top of much, much more. Wave dashing and wave landing also exist in Ultimate, the only other entry in the series where the directional air dodging that makes the technique possible exists. But the practicality of these two techniques has been absolutely gutted, as air dodging has added startup frames and becomes slower the more you use it. Furthermore, the lag from landing by air dodging into the ground is massively increased, and you can't wave dash or wave land off of platforms. All of this done in an effort to simplify the game, lower the skill ceiling, and narrow the gap between casual players and professionals. We'll explore the implications of Ultimate's more limiting platforms further in Part 3. A big part of what makes Melee feel so unique among the Smash games and its continued success and longevity as a competitive video game, in my opinion, is just how fucking fast it is. Characters fall like they're made of lead, they attack fast, they run fast, and unlike Brawl, Smash 4, and Ultimate, they maintain their running speed when jumping. They don't just abruptly slow down when they leave the ground. With such mechanics in place, combos are able to be extended further and with way more creativity than in its sequels, as characters aren't limited by how quickly they can move to follow up. And when the game's natural speed is combined with the advanced movement options we went over earlier, players can get really creative. Melee's peak speed is absolutely unparalleled in the series because of the combined speed of its characters and the movement capabilities the game's engine allows. And it's no surprise that YouTube commenters sometimes genuinely question if footage of competitive Melee has been sped up. This isn't to say that Melee's movement isn't without flaws. A part of Melee's movement system that bothers me is something called dashback, the act of going from a neutral standing position to turning around and dashing away at full speed. Simple, right? Well, no. To do this and skip the relatively lengthy turnaround animation requires a one-frame input on the player's controller from a neutral position past the walking zone and into the dash zone. For perspective, one frame in Melee, which runs at 60 frames per second, is 16 milliseconds. To really drive this point home, this camera is currently displaying a number from 1 to 60, representing the individual frames in this 60 FPS video. You have, at most, the time it takes for this counter to increase by 1 to complete this motion and not have it fuck up. I say at most because the odds of you beginning this motion right at the beginning of a frame are very low. So on average, you'll have about half the time it takes for this counter to increase by 1.
A little
I
higher!
want to do this.
There! I've got it!
I'm dead fucking serious. Besides the one-frame timing required for this action, your controller itself can affect how consistently you perform it. If you get lucky and happen upon an extremely rare controller with a malfunctioning analog stick box, yes, malfunctioning, this action becomes much easier to perform consistently. These broken controllers are coveted among top Melee players, and you might be familiar with this article about Armada dropping out of a tournament because he didn't have one of them to compete with. Why is dashback so important? Well, in Melee, the difference between a successful dashback and an unsuccessful one can be the difference between punishing your opponent or getting punished yourself, sometimes even resulting in losing a stock. Having a relatively normal, simple action that even casual players will perform have its input leniency be reduced so much as to be controller dependent is bad game design. And things like this are some of my biggest gripes with the game, as they throw a wrench into the competitive loop of studying, practicing, and application by making two of the steps dependent on external factors. Melee is a precise game in itself, and players' practiced precision shouldn't be affected negatively by external factors such as controller differences. And most people agree with me, as a mod called UCF, or Universal Controller Fix, was made to increase dashback's leniency from 1 frame to 2, and thus make it less controller dependent. This mod is even used at some super majors nowadays. However, controllers can also affect things like wave dashing, ledge dashes, and shield drops, the latter of which is also adjusted with UCF due to its controller dependency. Manufacturing discrepancies cause the optimal inputs for these precise techniques to vary from controller to controller, and unfortunately, they're all extremely important in competitive play. It's gotten to the point that people have started selling controller modifications at a premium to file away at the perimeter of the analog stick gate to notch shield drop values for consistent shield drops, maximum length wave dashes, or the steepest possible angles for Fox and Falco's up B. These modifications are incredibly popular among mid and high level players, and I'd imagine that most, if not all, of the players on Melee's top 100 have these modifications on their controller, among other modifications such as removing springs in the triggers or soldering capacitors to the inner board of the controller to reduce things like snapback. While I personally don't have any problem with the actual practice of selling things like this, it certainly represents an issue with the way Melee is currently played compared to how it was meant to be played. And this is where the issue lies with me. As I said before, these external elements on your controller shouldn't be a factor in how well and consistently you're able to perform actions in-game. Admittedly, some of these are issues that non-competitive players likely won't notice, but because of the game's heavy use of these techniques in competitive environments, it's worth bringing up as criticism to the overall game. You might find it odd to complain about these aspects of the game when the mods I mentioned fix these things, but to me that's the equivalent of the equally ridiculous mods will fix it mentality that's common to Bethesda games and bad PC ports of the modern era. Just because you can fix these issues via mods, it doesn't mean these issues are free from criticism. Plus, some competitive tournaments don't even run with fixes like UCF in place, and players looking to play the game on its native hardware might not even have access to these fixes at all. Such heavy importance on controllers is the sad reality of a game whose beautiful, complex, unique mechanics are often the result of player experimentation and engine manipulation rather than developer intention. But because a lot of these same or similar elements are also elements I've already listed as positives, I believe it's important to be objective and fair in explaining why mechanics that make Melee distinctive and fun also sometimes end up being a bother as well, regardless of what was or wasn't intended. With the exception of Subspace Emissary and Brawl, which was a complete, interesting single-player experience with a story, actual levels, and a ton of cool bosses, I've never really been too big a fan of Super Smash Bros. Single-player, and Melee is certainly no different. I don't think this is an uncommon opinion either. After all, Super Smash Bros. Is a fighting game, or a party game depending on who you ask. It's largely meant to be played with another person or a group of people. To put it lightly, the single-player options in Melee are adequate. Because what modes exist in Melee were, for the most part, done better in later installments, whether it be for the increases in roster size and thus content and variety, the addition or expansion of certain modes, or the fleshing out of ideas featured in Melee. Event mode consists of 51 separate challenges, mostly shallow ones with gimmicks like your opponent being metal or big or small. These can be fun, but they end up feeling a bit samey after you've done a number of them. Classic mode makes its return from Smash 64, but unfortunately many of the different levels in Classic mode just feel like random event mode matches strung together, where you're just fighting some random CPU taken from a small pool of characters with a gimmick attached, like them being metal or big or small. Stage 11 in particular, where you fight both Master Hand and Crazy Hand, is just event 50. I'd imagine this was a lot of fun back in the day, but it's mostly lost its luster, especially when compared to the classic modes that came after it. Ultimate's classic mode, for instance, massively improves on Melee's formula by having a theme related to each individual character. For example, Pikachu's classic mode only involves Pokemon, whether it be Pokemon fighters or Pokemon stages, and the only items that drop are Pokeballs. There are also a good amount of final bosses rather than just the hands, which are always the final boss in Melee. The best part of Melee's classic mode, and the one thing it does better than Ultimates, are the target test stages. Each individual character has their own unique target test, and they're designed around that particular character's moveset. Target test is completely absent from Ultimate's classic mode. Instead, all you've got is this shitty race to the finish kind of thing that's the same for every character, which is lame as fuck. Much like classic mode, outside of the two legitimately interesting Mario and Zelda levels, adventure mode just ends up feeling like a bunch of event mode matches stitched together, and some of them even straight up are event mode matches, meaning beyond those two levels I mentioned, there's not much difference between adventure and classic. Ultimate's adventure mode is called World of Light, and it has the worst fucking theme I've ever heard in a video game. World of Light gives you a world map where you can pick and choose your gimmick fights while unlocking characters permanently. You can equip spirits that let you start out battles with certain items or give you things like attack and defense bonuses, on top of a dedicated skill tree consisting of a number of passive effects. These keep things relatively fun for a while, with your spirits slightly altering how you fight, but even with these spirits, World of Light becomes a bit tedious. And unfortunately, the bosses of World of Light are also the same ones you fight in classic mode. Still, it ended up being a lot more fun than Melee's adventure mode to me. All-Star is an endurance mode where you fight through the game's roster while managing 3 heart containers that reset your percentage. This is an interesting concept, if only for this metagame based around these 3 hearts. But like adventure and classic mode, it ends with an exact copy of an event. I mean, they couldn't come up with something new? What, were they short for time or something? On top of most of these ideas being better realized in later installments, the movement and speed that makes Melee so unique and enjoyable serve much less of a purpose when playing against computer opponents in these single-player modes. Instead, on harder difficulties, much of the gameplay ends up revolving around cheesing or exploiting the questionable AI. Home Run Contest, a fan favorite, makes its debut in Melee, and it's just as good as ever. But just like fighting computer opponents in Adventure, Classic, and All-Star modes, it barely makes use of Melee's unique and fun mechanics. So Home Run Contest ends up just being something you'd rather play in one of the other installments, where you have a wider selection of characters. Barring nostalgia, single player is just something that was done much better in the games following Melee, even if they're all just varying degrees of boring to me. It should come as no surprise that what I think Melee most excels at is its multiplayer. It's here that you can use the tools and techniques discussed in Part 1 that make Melee so fulfilling, technical, and cool to their utmost potential on human opponents. Supplemented by these movement options is the amount of hit stun most moves have. Indeed, attacks in Melee have, on average, some of the most hit stun in the entire series, but not enough to be what I'd consider overbearing like in Smash 64. This lends itself well to extended combos that test a player's execution to perform, as well as the receiving player's ability to escape. Combos that, thanks to the aforementioned hit stun, as well as things like platform and stage movement, are extremely dynamic. Because of these fundamental differences in combo length, competitive Smash 64 and Melee players place the most emphasis on developing a strong punish game as opposed to strong neutral when first beginning their respective games. This trend continues into higher level play as well-practiced players can often take a stock in only 1 or 2 openings. Brawl and Beyond place more emphasis on neutral due to their smaller amount of hit stun and decreased speed, and thus shorter combos. While which you like more is down to preference, I think there's something to be said about how much more creative, complex, and entertaining combos are when you have more options to move and more time to follow up. One of the biggest differences between Ultimate and Melee, at least competitively, is how players of each respective game use and interact with platforms. In Melee, platforms are extremely versatile and mechanically
I do
deep.
not like
Many
Sam
players
Raimi.
base their entire playstyles around platforms and how they use them to their advantage. It's a reminder of how much more freeform, neutral, and combos are when platforms are fun and easy to move around on. In games like Ultimate, however, the same platforms that make Smash Bros. As a series so unique represent how the developers have chosen to limit the amount of options to move and interact. For example, the aforementioned removal of edge cancels for sick combos and otherwise impossible plays, removal of shield drops for quick counterattacks, and the removal of nearly all possibilities to interact with them via wave landing and wave dashing. Whereas in Melee, platforms are often used to stretch an advantage, play defensively in combos, to play neutral around, or simply just to mix your opponent up, it seems Ultimate's best players tend to actively avoid platform play due to their limitations on blocking them and playing around them. Within competitive Ultimate's fluctuating list of legal stages, I almost never see traditional 3-platform stages like Battlefield and Yoshi's Story played on. Instead, Ultimate
Show me some fine shit. I would love to watch.
Final Destination with their platforms so to the side that they range
I've been trying to like stop weed smoking. I've been out of 2 days. It's been helping. Like for the Bible, it's been hard for me to start. Like, what do you guys start? I don't know.
Look at John. Listen, you're a child of God. He's our father. When we were children, our dad had to reveal stuff to us because we didn't know everything. We don't know everything right now, so he reveals it to us. But you gotta be in the Word every day, and he'll start revealing things to you.
I've been praying about like smoking weed coming in my life. I seen on the IG reels. Is this recording, bro? God got a message, bro. He came to my life for a reason.
Heavenly Father, thanks for name. I pray as I speak, Lord, that all that addiction leaves him in Jesus' name, God. Fill that hole in his heart with your love, your grace, and your mercy, Lord. Anything that's attacking his life, Lord, I command it to stop in the name of Jesus Christ. I thank you for this moment, Lord, to see count, Lord, continue to convict them.
While the movement issue is most pronounced on platforms, many general advanced movement options that were in games like Melee, Brawl, and Smash 4 have been taken away and replaced with nothing. I very often see Ultimate players lament the removal of advanced movement options that were in these past games.
The removal of perfect pivots kind of makes it so we don't have that many options off of a platform, as you can't perfect pivot drop through your platform. It's kind of tough. But another thing that got taken out was shield dropping. Shield dropping, I tried living it, I tried a lot of different control schemes. It doesn't seem like they have shield dropping in this current build of the game. It's really tragic. It makes shielding on a platform feel kind of rough.
These are understandable criticisms because who doesn't want a deeper and more free-form game to play? Who wants to be limited further in how many ways they can move? To Masahiro Sakurai, the creator and director of the series, the answer is casual players. But the truth is, casual players don't give a fuck if these options are in the game. Hell, most of them probably don't even know they exist. Casual players will enjoy it just the same. The only thing these oversimplified mechanics do are negatively affect the people who want a deep, competitive experience, which is supposedly the audience the game was made to cater to.
Well then, please enjoy the very first Smash Bros. Ultimate Tournament.
Because of these differences, on top of things like how different every character is comboed due to Melee having the widest range of weight, fall speed, and gravity values in the series, much of Melee's depth comes from how much there is to learn about and exploit how each individual character can move to either combo or play neutral, while Ultimate's depth is instead more based on its huge roster size, comprised of more simple characters and mechanics. This and the sheer amount of characters to choose from are a huge reason as to why games like Ultimate are much, much better games for casual play. The limitations in movement and combos, as well as the copious buffer, make the game more accessible and intentionally narrow the gap between those who want to play for fun and those who want to play the game competitively, just like Sakurai wanted. While because of the extremely tight, precise controls that take practice to even get used to, smaller roster, and somewhat flat single-player modes, Melee is somewhat of a casual, unfriendly experience compared to later games. The breadth of difficult techniques characters can use to deepen and enhance their play in competitive environments instead make it more suited to tournament play. Of course, this leads us to the question of balance. How balanced is Melee? I've already done a pretty in-depth look at how many characters are viable in
Looks like
Melee,
an
but
alien
when discussing
skeleton
balancing
meal.
in relation to Smash's more contemporary installments,
Maniacs, welcome back to the channel. Your local bedhead here. So I decided to go ahead and make a quick video about the recent stuff that's been talked about within this A1 Solutions drama. A lot's happened. Literally throughout this. Valve is making Microsoft panic. They
So, technicals, come on.
If you're going to stay here, I'll set up.
Okay. You are getting good. First off, thank you to everyone for not assassinating me.
Sitting Bull grew up in a time of prosperity for the Lakota people.
But people started flooding the West.
Native people see it as an invasion from the East.
Did you know you can create voiceover audio in as little as 5 minutes? Welcome to Natural Reader AI Voice Generator. My name is Taylor, one of the over 225 AI voices responsible for bringing your script to life. Let me show you just how easy it is to turn your written text into high-quality audio. To start a project, users can either copy and paste their script,
Sitting Bull suddenly becomes front page news.
Custer's mission was seek and destroy.
He couldn't help but smile as he watched the sun.
Newton's first law of motion, also known as the law of inertia.
Dear team, I hope this email finds...
I can't believe we actually did it. The project is finally completed, and it turned out better than I could have imagined. Dear team, I hope that
Newton's first law of motion, also known as Newton's first law of motion, also known as the law of inertia. It states that an object at rest stays at rest.
It's 2014, and on opposite sides of the globe, two tournaments would occur for the game Super Smash Bros. Melee for the GameCube. Hidden Stunt 2, held in Barcelona, Spain, and Press Start, held in Irvine, California. In this tournament, two top
Natural Reader Commercial allows users to redistribute their creative.
A gentle melancholy weighed on her heart, woven from memories of a time when laughter echoed through.
Welcome to the team. In this training session, we'll
A gentle melancholy weighed on her heart.
Should I make sandwiches?
At Hit and Run, two of the best European players in the world, Leffen playing White Fox and Ice playing Green Fox, find themselves in a similarly tight match, where whoever loses will be eliminated from the respective tournament. Prior to this match, the players have had a 5-5 set count, meaning this set will decide who takes the lead in the rivalry.
I've never been this bored in my entire life. Aaron, you asleep?
These two players were known as two of the most polarizing on the scene. However, the stars had not yet aligned for them to meet with this energy. However, this time would eventually come, and the passion they would bring into this match would involve public altercations, inciting harassment campaigns, and ultimately cultivating a match that would push the envelope of what would be deemed acceptable in an esports match. Their story is one of 4 matches that gets progressively more intense as time goes on, with the last one being the climax. But the first of these meetings would bring about something surprisingly unexpected. It's EVO 2013, the biggest fighting game tournament of the year, and a 19-year-old Jigglypuff player, Juan Piedra, otherwise known as Hungrybox, crosses paths with
I've seen the same fly pass by
otherwise
10 times already.
This match, unlike the previously mentioned, is a best of 3, meaning the player to win 2 games first moves on in the bracket. At this point, Hungrybox is one of the 5 players that has been dominating competition, known as the 5 Gods of Melee, and is generally seen as the favorite in this match. And Leffen, the widely known second best player in Europe, is seen as a formidable opponent, but unlikely to win this match. However, this matchup isn't necessarily in Hungrybox's favor. Hungrybox's main, Jigglypuff, is one of the lightest characters in the game, and Fox, widely seen as the best character in the game, has multiple.
Here's a collection of fun facts about Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, and Dark Souls Pillars, covering development stories, game mechanics, and lesser-known tidbits. I've aimed to make this concise yet engaging, roughly paced for a 7-minute reading or presentation, assuming about 120-150 words per minute. Let's dive into the grim, fascinating world of the Souls series. Dark Souls, inspired by a childhood game, Hidetaka Miyazaki, the director, drew inspiration from his childhood love of Dungeons & Dragons and text-based adventure games. He loved how these games left much to the imagination, which shaped Dark Souls' cryptic storytelling. The game's vague lore was intentional, encouraging players to piece together the narrative themselves. The Broken Archstone
is visibly irritated by the quick tide change, and Hungrybox making that clear to him in real life. However, the crowd doesn't necessarily take either player's side in this case, as Jigglypuff is generally seen as a boring character due to his slow playstyle.
There's a very real danger.
And Leffen has been recently banned from competing in his home country due to his demeanor in recent tournaments, although he had been working to move past this by competing in the US. Game 2 commences similarly to the first one, with Leffen gaining a minor lead. However, in this matchup, these are
the concept. Here's a collection of fun facts about Dark Souls, Dark Souls that are new, and Dark Souls that aren't done, covering development stories. Here's a collection of fun facts about Dark Souls, Dark Souls that are new, and Dark Souls that aren't done, covering development stories, game mechanics, and lesser. Here's a collection of fun facts about Dark Souls, Dark Souls that are new, and Dark Souls that aren't done, covering development stories, game mechanics, and lesser-known tidbits. Aye. Let's dive into the grim, fascinating world of the Souls series. Please like and subscribe. Dark Souls, inspired by a childhood game, Hidetaka Miyazaki, the director, drew inspiration from his childhood love of Dungeons & Dragons and text-based adventure games. He loved how these games left much to the imagination, which shaped Dark Souls' cryptic storytelling. The game's vague lore was intentional, encouraging players to piece together the narrative themselves. The Broken Archstone. Influence. The concept of interconnected worlds came partly from Demon Souls, from Soft Setup's predecessor to Dark Souls. The infamous Broken Archstone in Demon Souls, a portal to a cut area, inspired Dark Souls' interconnected lore driven. Here's a collection of fun.
Hey, are we going to do something other than just stand here?
Facts about Dark Souls. Dark Souls SRQ, and Dark Souls that aren't that hard. Covering development stories, game mechanics, and lesser-known tidbits. Aye. Let's dive into the grim, fascinating world of the Souls series. Please like and subscribe. Dark Souls, inspired by a childhood game, Hidetaka Miyazaki, the director, drew inspiration from his childhood love of the...
Bored. Are we doing something? Should I make sandwiches?
Parlez-moi de vous et de votre pays, dit l'épouvantail. Tell me about yourself and your hundred Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3, covering the development stories, game mechanics, and lesser-known tidbits. Let's dive into the grim, fascinating world of the Souls series.
Aaron, you asleep?
And Hungrybox wins. However, unlike in their ultimate encounter, there was no bad blood between these competitors yet, or at least, bad blood was rather playful. Months later, at one of the biggest tournaments of the year, Apex 2014, the two would play a salty sweet match involving the outcome of their Evo. Although there wasn't much tension in the air,
Can you read that? Of course I can, the old photo.
the game on screen was starting to tell a much different story. Leffen would take game one in a dominant freestyle, now remotely reminiscent of their match from last year.
Are you sure you said it?
Visibly upset, and potentially shaken, takes out his earbuds before quietly selecting the stage for game two. Leffen's newfound confidence minorly backfires at him immediately as he self-destructs and HBox takes advantage of the moment to jump his face.
Good on him.
HBox would take this lead that Leffen gave him to successfully flip the script from an otherwise worrying start to the match for him. HBox would not pop off after his game 2 victory, surprising his name relatively to HBox wouldn't let him be as his
Doesn't seem the friendliest of touches.
HBox would prove why he was one of the top gods. Pokemon was rarely cheered for had the crowd behind him was elected to perform.
Parkers, so much sweat for nothing. Now it's too late.
And left his load to fight against his seemingly predetermined fate.
Chanterelle for later, so juicy. But for now it's a cold meal. Wake up, Lord Hot Karab!
Rising in their rankings, now only being seen as inferior to one, Armada. However, unforeseen to many, Leffen would have his own rise to power.
Good DI on it, dude. Shut off your... No one really wants to commit to anything. One up there, two up there. Yep, there, that was great. That was good for London. And I want to clean up the guy around him, so when another one. That's what. One way dash back. Oh, another one kind of gone with that edge guard. So that shit out of field. Yes, it is.
Leffen would beat two of the other gods, Mewtwo King and Armada. However, Hungrybox would be awaiting him in Winners Finals. But this version of Leffen was many levels above what Hungrybox had previously experienced. Game 1 would be relatively even, with players trading stocks until both had one left. However, in contrast to many of their previous meetups, in an even match, Leffen would take the first game. And would ride this momentum to a massive lead in Game 2. And although this was the most powerful Leffen had ever been up to this point, Hungrybox wouldn't let himself be run over.
Everybody listen up. We starting our own league. I'm calling the shots. War was wrong. I'm the face of this organization. You always gonna be in my shadow.
And in a close Game 3, he continued to show that he didn't want his superiority over Leffen to fade, guiding the game to another livestock bout, which he narrowly edged out. Hungrybox clearly was not holding back, as he had witnessed his fellow gods fall to Leffen earlier today, and was determined to stop his rise. He took a lead in a back-and-forth Game 4, and with an impressive edgeguard on the third stock, Hungrybox took a stock lead.
and looked to shut the door on Leffen's rise to the top. But today, Leffen had other plans. There was no playing things up for the crowd. Going into this Game 5, both players were entirely locked into the struggle for power. Leffen would take a lead into this game and then extend it, bringing himself to the verge of taking out his third god of the day. But Hungrybox didn't let his will waver, and in a similar position to Game 2, he fought back, with his game hanging by a thread. But in the same position that Hungrybox stole Game 2, Leffen flipped an edge guard and stole the throne. Leffen would later beat Mangum, his fourth god of the day in Grand Finals, winning the tournament over 4 gods of the game, the first time this had ever happened in the game's history. And through this, he officially cemented himself as a competitor for the #1 player in the world, and earned his nickname of the Godslayer. This period in Smash would bring about some great changes. For instance, one of the gods, PPMD, would essentially retire from competition, with Leffen effectively taking his spot as a top competitor. Secondly, Armada would continue his era of dominance as the #1 player in the world for the second year in a row. However, his dominance wouldn't come without question, as Hungrybox managed to win the biggest tournament of the year, EVO, and widely regarded as one of the greatest sets of all time. However, Hungrybox's rise to a true contender for the #1 spot didn't come without controversy. When Hungrybox was at the lower end of the top 5, many spectators were either indifferent to him or likely disliked him because of Jigglypuff, partially because he didn't disrupt the power structure of tournament results. But as soon as he started preventing other top players from winning tournaments with his rise, many spectators began to view him less than favorably. This wouldn't be the only reason spectators began to gradually turn against Hungrybox, as certain top players began to push a negative narrative about his rise to the top, one of them being Leffen.
What a deep and thoughtful game.
Leffen historically wasn't a fan of Jigglypuff and Melee, citing the character's slow playstyle as being against the spirit of the game. However, in the past, Leffen's words wouldn't have much of an influence over the general discourse of the community. But as Leffen had progressed in his own rise to the top, the community began to take his words more seriously. Gradually, a narrative of Hungrybox's success being a threat to the health of the game began to be seen more constantly. However, most of the flack against Hungrybox was written off as online fodder, but as many would come to see, no one was willing to pull the plug.
All the fuckers, they know the fun they're talking about. Except $100. It's not really like, you didn't know, did you know that he didn't know you can run in Smash? Yeah. I have so much respect for all the top players. Except Hungrybox, because he just carried.
Attacks against Jigglypuff as a character would gradually turn into attacks against Hungrybox's skill as a player, which would then gradually turn into attacks against him as a person. And Hungrybox officially becoming the #1 player in the world would only come to make this worse. In 2017, Hungrybox would be approached at a Walmart in public, and harassed by someone who supposedly held a lot of his strong beliefs. What should have been a wake-up call for the community didn't serve as such, as the anti-HBox sentiment would only continue to grow. At the 5th iteration of the Summit Invitational Tournament, shortly before Genesis, Hungrybox would win it for the first time, stopping Armada from winning his 5th Summit in a row. However, the top players' reactions painted an interesting story. Although many still displayed good sportsmanship, many competitors didn't even show up for Hungrybox's victory speech, or left before it happened. All of this, however, would culminate at the biggest tournament of the following year, Genesis 5. All of the top players would plan to show up for it, and the hype around it primarily revolved around one showdown. Hungrybox, the player who symbolized the allegedly declining state of the game in men's eyes, versus Leffen, who had been a persistent proponent of this narrative despite the fact that it was getting personal. And it only continued to get more personal, as the night before Genesis, Leffen would go live on his Twitch channel, where he would spend most of the live stream talking about Hungrybox and Jigglypuff, to much acclaim from those watching.
Like, there's two kinds of people in this world. HBox fans and people who do that.
While practicing with Armada, a player who would typically stay away from drama, their conversations would still revolve around this topic regardless. Leffen would also invite a lower-ranked Jigglypuff player on stream to practice, and would encourage him to tell negative stories about Hungrybox, which would later be proven false.
Yeah, the first time I met him, I asked him for a best of $5 fucked with him, and when he found out that I was a fuck, he went to secondaries, he took 2 games, and then after the second game, he was like, alright, I don't want to keep playing, And he takes my money, he walks away, and I was wearing the H-Box shirt that he made, like the one with the cute. And he says to me, nice shirt, and he leaves. It was. Are you? There's no way.
Regardless, Leffen would clip this part of his stream and upload it onto YouTube with this thumbnail. Genesis itself began, and Hungrybox and Leffen were seeded to verse each other within the tournament. Both successfully made it to the top 8 winner side, where they'd be slated to play in winner semifinals on Championship Sunday. Before that happened, Hungrybox finally took the opportunity to speak out about Leffen's recent behavior in a pre-game interview.
It was the only reason I came to this tournament. I want to kick that guy down. And I want to make sure that when I do it, he remembers what happened to him at Summit. Last time he talked shit, and got blown up. Maybe in 2 years understand that sometimes talking shit and then getting destroyed for the 15th time in a row might be the reason you play badly. And if you want to sit down, have a heart-to-heart, talk about mentality, talk about our feelings, I'm here for you.
Hungrybox's opportunity soon came. Their match would be the first of the day, and although it had been custom for competitors to fist bump before matches, there was none of that for these two this time around, and the competitors went straight into their first game. Game 1, the competitors would start out rather even. However, Leffen would overextend in a couple of key scenarios.
Rushdown style if you want. That's where one of the this moves, but there's not a Hungrybox to look at. That was a read. He's let him keep Hungrybox out. Right. And he's not doing a great job of that. No, not at all.
Allowing H-Box to take a 3-1 stock lead. But he would start to play a lot more patient, bringing the game back to a last stock bout. However, his aggression at the beginning proved to make too big of a deficit, and H-Box managed to escape with a win. But the momentum was slowly turning into Leffen's favor. Between games, it's also customary for competitors to communicate to each other which stage they will be choosing for the following game. However, after Game 1, both players wouldn't even look at each other, and would simply agree on the next stage through the screen. And in Game 2, Leffen would carry on the momentum he built through Game 1, maintaining a patient playstyle, hitting Fox's best kill confirms, up smash, and up air. There is a clear difference in demeanor between games in this match versus their previous encounters, as in the past, between games, one of them might pop off or take a breather. However, between these games, both competitors stayed entirely locked in and would go directly to the next game. Game 3 would be played on Dreamland, Jigglypuff's best stage in the matchup, and Hungrybox would use this to rein the momentum back into his favor.
Oh my god!
However, the match would still be close.
Leffen pressing forward now. Definitely a little bit impatient. Yeah, Leffen definitely looking a little impatient. He's throwing out so many hitboxes. Hungrybox knows he's going to pick up on stuff like that. You know, if you're feeling safe, you're feeling that safe off in the guy. But again, going for the ledge. Hungrybox, you got to hold him.
But Hungrybox would manage to close it out regardless. Leffen would show visible frustration after Game 3, but in this case, he would use that to his advantage going into Game 4. Game 4 would be played on Final Destination, a stage in favor of Fox in this matchup, and Leffen would be dominant.
Wow. And up there, KO so early, plus returns. Take notes. Very tight. Yeah, up front. And only person up there is that's Hungrybox basically sitting his whole right. Yeah. Leffen 4 stocks to 1 right now. Total.
The game would nearly end in a 4-stock, and now the onus was on H-Box. The match had been rather back and forth, and Game 5 would determine who would win this mental war that had been playing out throughout this match and for the past months. The game, like many others, would start uneven, with both players making 9 mistakes, potentially due to the stakes of the situation. Leffen would miss into the ledge dash and lose the first stock, and Hungrybox would take this lapse from Leffen's confidence as an opportunity to play uncharacteristically aggressive, pushing Leffen to make another error, and making a read to take his second stock of the trade. Despite the weight of the moment, the game would transition into a battle of patience, with both players trying to push each other out of their comfort zone, and Leffen would get first blood. The crowd was noticeably louder than in any other match of the tournament so far, but also any other game of this match. The game at this point would be a battle of who could hold it together better.
Leffen just is trading.
Hungrybox would soon fight back, and with their prides on the line, The game looked like it could go either way.
Tough for Lefton to make this comeback, given the pace and the way that the game's been playing so far. It's absolutely possible for Fox to just find enough smash and tie everything up, but that might be it. Game 5, Hungrybox winning.
Competitors are obliged to shake hands after a match, so Hungrybox walks over to Leffen's side of the stage to do so. However, Leffen would quickly get up and leave the stage, and Hungrybox didn't take that very lightly.
Hungrybox, it's a mad dog. Wow. It's a mad dog. Wow. Ooh.
Hungrybox would advance to winners finals, while Leffen would drop to losers quarterfinals, seeded to play against Mango and Armada, two players he wasn't necessarily favored against. Hungrybox would take a semi-surprising loss to Plum, and move down into losers finals. His competitor, though, would not be the one he would expect, or be the one he would want to see. Number 3 and number 2 players in the world, and would be granted the chance of a rematch against the number 1 player. And he would be determined to not let this opportunity slip.
He said, I can already tell. Emotions are already flying. I'm scared. I'm terrified.
Leffen would come into this match with calculated aggression that HBox could feel through the screen. The match was in the air, HBox trying to hold off, and in game 1, still choose to play the 5th game on that stage, however, and the final game would prove to be the most intense of all of those, as Leffen would try to ride his momentum from the past 2 games, while Hungrybox would try to slow down the pace by using the size of the stage to build his own momentum, which he did. Taking the game to a 3-1 stock lead, this would now be Leffen's last stand. One stock stood between Hungrybox and him ultimately proving his will over Leffen. However, Leffen would fight against this future, either out of nerves or out of the second game, The match would find its way to each other. Spectator would throw a crab at him after winning the tournament. All of the previous are their own significant moments in Smash Bros. History. However, this match serves as the pinnacle of the personal beef between these two players, and runs the risk of being lost to time. Hungrybox would go on to place second at this tournament, but being ranked number 1 for 2 more years, Nephilim will continue to play there, while finding success in other esports as well. As for their rivalry, it hasn't necessarily been entirely smooth. However, it's never gotten to the personal level it was during this time. In the great scheme of things, these two players now serve. A large portion of the top players from their eras have since retired, and these two, although at one point bitter rivals, now serve as one of each other's only reminders of the past. As the 2025, their rivalry is proof of the power of a strong adversary, and throughout their careers, they've motivated each other to reach incredible heights that they may have not reached otherwise. Their matches, their stories, all of those roped into it may one day be lost to time. But at the end of the day, they'll never forget what a rivalry and a fighting game made for children turned into.
Can't keep him out there. Knocked him out. Take his shirt off. Searching the crowd.
Melee has become one of the most successful esports in video game history, and it's still going strong for over 20 years. It's a game that's constantly evolving and introducing us to new innovations. I went to my first local Melee tournament in November of 2011, and I've been able to see firsthand how much the Melee meta has evolved over time. But one thing that hasn't changed much about Melee is its competitive rule set. For all of the years that I've been playing this game, the rule set is as follows. Each player has 4 stocks. The time limit of each match is set to 8 minutes. Items are turned off, and there are stages that are specifically legal for tournament play. It makes the Melee players and spectators wonder, how did the community come together and decide upon this rule set? Well, we won't be talking too much about how the community came up with these in-game rule sets, but we will be talking about certain competitive rules that are added into the rule set in order to promote the health of the game, as well as discussing some unspoken rules of Melee that players abide by in order to enjoy the game more and to promote a healthy environment. So be sure to grab a snack and plenty of water, because this video is probably going to take a while. But it's really good flaws. As a result of there are glitches and oversights that need to be accounted for in order to promote a fair competitive environment. Let's start by talking about stalling. According to the Smash Wiki, stalling is defined as any strategy that avoids all fighting conflict with the goal of making the game unplayable or winning a match by going to timeout. There are many ways to stall in this game. Jigglypuff is keeping the game in the air for a very long time by spamming rising pounds in the air while utilizing her 5 aerial jumps. Peach is capable of gaining height off of doing her side B against the walls of a stage, allowing her to be in the air forever if you're good at maintaining it. People aren't even safe in the realm of melee doubles, where 2 Luigi players can team up, gain a lead, and then just fly off the earth by doing up Bs on each other. These are usually the first things that come to melee players' heads when we're talking about stalling. There are 2 glitches in particular that were immediate targets for banning upon discovery due to them being used as a stalling tool. Mewtwo's Soulbreaker glitch and Ice Climber's Freeze glitch are very similar to each other. Mewtwo's Soulbreaker glitch can be performed by utilizing Mewtwo's Side B against the projectiles of any character. Side B has a dual purpose in the fact that it can be used to reflect projectiles and be used as a command grab. However, the developers somehow didn't think it was fair for this slow and terrible move that sometimes is capable of reflecting the projectile back to yourself to be spammed. The developers put a cap on how many times in a row Mewtwo can reflect a projectile. On the 6th side B, Mewtwo will go through a shield break animation, leaving him vulnerable. For some reason, there was a curious mind that thought to themselves, what if I do side B to command grab a player while reflecting a projectile to force the shield break animation to happen? And then this happened. As you can see, since Axe is showing off this glitch with a red shell against Still Foxes, you can only imagine how much of a journey a Mewtwo player has to go through to actually hit this glitch in a real match. But if there was actually even a slightly consistent way of performing the Soulbreaker glitch, the technique would undoubtedly need to be controlled, so we might as well prevent the glitch from happening before a problem starts, right? The Freeze glitch is different from Mewtwo's Soulbreaker for one very significant reason. It is super easy to perform. This glitch can easily start right when Ice Climbers grab you, and hell, getting grabbed by Ice Climbers already makes my heart fall out of my chest. So guess how it would feel getting grabbed at the start of a game and immediately losing because you can't move. It would take this demon of a character and literally turn them into the embodiment of Lucifer himself. Stalling is not limited to the characters that I've mentioned so far. The first 3 games of the Smash series have pretty stupid ledge mechanics if we're being honest. After completing a ledge grab animation in Melee, all characters are given a 30-frame window of intangibility. These 30 frames of intangibility can repeat itself every single time you grab a ledge, meaning you can just keep grabbing the ledge and stay invincible forever. You can just go to the ledge and keep yourself safe, and in some situations, control the entire flow of the game by forcing your opponent to approach you in an unsafe way. This strategy is called planking. Planking was identified as a competitive issue pretty early in the game, and by the game, I mean Brawl. Back when Mewtwo was going through his reign of terror in Smash, being one of the best Melee and Brawl players in the world at the same time, he was heavily abusing the planking strategy with Meta Knight. He single-handedly morphed the Meta Knight metagame to center around constantly running away and keeping yourself safe at the ledge until you eventually get over. With Mewtwo's flanking strategy having little counterplay other than committing yourself to a risky approach against an invincible Meta Knight at the ledge, it really was not fun to play against or watch as a spectator. The Brawl community thus came together and established a ledge grab limit to help nerf this playstyle and nerf Meta Knight. Some tournaments would have ledge grab limits as low as 30 ledge grabs. These ledge grabs in Melee and Brawl can easily be calculated at the end of a match by checking the results screen for the cliffhanger value. So the Brawl community took roughly 3 years to decide that ledge planking was a broken strategy. So how long did it take for the Melee community to realize this in their game? Almost 18 years. I think taking 18 years to realize how broken the ledge is in Melee is kind of insane. Ledge intangibility in Melee is so much stronger than it is in Brawl. This is because Melee gives the player the ability to waveland onto the stage from the ledge, giving you Galint, or grounded actionable ledge intangibility, allowing you to land on stage from the ledge and be able to throw out an attack while remaining invincible. But Galint isn't the reason planking is broken. Planking and ledge stalling are broken because every character in the game can do it, and they do it pretty well. Let's go back to Mew2King in Melee this time. He was a pretty notorious ledge camper both in singles and doubles, but what I'm going to show you right now is his worst example of planking.
Mew2King, someone who loves talking about how only Pop deserves a ledge grab limit, is now making a strong case for himself.
Mew2King versus Westballs at Saints Gaming Live 2017. Game 4 is where you start to see Mew2King begin to abuse the ledge as a way to bait Westballs to approach. When Westballs respects Mew2King's ability to cheese at the ledge, Mew2King decides to not fully commit to the planking strategy, but begins to change his playstyle to be more patient, resulting in Westballs being even more patient. Westballs ends up taking Game 4, and now Game 5 is starting on Fountain of Dreams. This is where Mew2King shows zero shame in his dedication to getting the W. After a minute and a half long struggle to get the first kill, Mew2King gets it with 152% yield. And then, he just starts grabbing the ledge. Mew2King grabs the ledge in Game 5 a total of 101 times to time out Westballs with a percentage lead. This isn't the first time ledge grab limits have been discussed, but this ridiculous display by Mew2King really highlighted the set as a major reason as to why planking is problematic. When talking about the set that we played, Mew2King argued that Falco has options against this strategy, and that Falco can actually put pressure on the ledge, while Westballs claimed that this playstyle for Mew2King was non-interactive, and forced him into a situation where any commitment he makes is extremely risky.
Just wave that shot of shield. You didn't even try to stop it. Play me. Why don't you play me next time? Dude, you weren't even trying to stop me. You're scared? No, this is laughable. It was more awful. You have ferocity and you're scared? It's awful. I mean, I've never beaten. Dude, you just stayed and watched the truck. No, it's empty space. Like a minute. Why would you do that? I went to the other side of the stage to let you get back on, and you just stood there for another 2 minutes. Dude, you didn't even try to take the ledge from me. Why would I? That's the bad risk. No, you should. You shoot the ledge. I can't grab you there. What? Defensibility. But guess what? If you edge off one time, shoot, I'm dead. I'm dead. Shoot. No, you just hit me when I get to it. You can open it. If I'm at 100 seconds, and if I... You can't always react. No, there isn't anything. No, that's why you won.
As a result of this set, the ledge grab limit was officially set as a rule. Although the number changes from tournament to tournament, it is never stable. But now I would like to address a different technique that also caused something to change, and the history of this technique is pretty long. Piece of Ice Climber's tech, and is the trick that brings them closer to their absolute double form that we talked about earlier. It's a very simple trick. If you end up getting a grab with your main climber and Nana is close by, you're able to alternate between pummeling the opponent and hitting them with F tilt and down tilt with Nana. The combination of these two attacks end up causing enough hit stun to prevent the opponent from breaking out of the grab before being hit by the next pummel. In simpler terms, it's an infinite that's possible off of grab. Now there are a lot of grabs happening in Melee all the time, but other characters need a lot more precision to get a true 0 to death off of grab. Getting a 0 to death like this one that S2J gets on Lucky is insane, and it's incredibly impressive to watch. And now look at this 0 to death, where the player just presses A in a certain rhythm to prevent the opponent from playing altogether. Honestly, what is the point in learning the difficult punish of any other character in one of the hardest games to master, when you can instead make your whole game plan running away and fishing for a grab so that you can get a wobble? Wobbling was discovered by the Japanese Melee community, where the technique was promptly banned upon discovery for potentially being too broken. The story of wobbling in North America is way different though. North American tournaments started off banning wobbling just like Japan, but then whether wobbling was allowed became a TO's decision. As early as 2012 is when we started seeing wobbling become commonplace in local tournaments. This era is where an Ice Climbers player by the name of Wobbles was really shining. In fact, this technique, despite being used by several Ice Climbers before him, was named wobbling because this guy is just such a legend. When EVO 2013 was confirmed to include Melee in its line of games to compete in for the first time since 2007, a new official rule was set into place. Wobbling is now legal. And coincidentally, this Texas Ice Climbers player had their best Melee performance in their career by going all the way to Grand Finals on winner's side, beating Ward, Shroom, Mango, PPMD, and Hungrybox before finally being double eliminated by Mango, who tore through losers top 8 to conquer with his Ice Climbers demon. Wobbling being legal brought a whole bunch of strong Ice Climbers players into the mix. Players whose whole goal is to base their neutral around getting a grab to set up a wobble. Not just wobbles, but players like DizKid Boogie, Nintendo, Army, and Boyd. This is also where hungry local Ice Climbers players started to get big wins. Players such as Sunny and JJM and Sharks. But this era also saw the unthinkable happen.
We gotta look it up sometimes. Or no, not. Did you search cool outfits to wear with shark tooth necklace?
Goldfish have short memories. Be like goldfish.
Brother. Stay in peace.
Chudan, historically one of the best players of old school Melee, was able to show off how crazy he really is in this game.
That's it.
Chudat destroyed everyone. He was beating all the best players that Melee had to offer, and he was doing it consistently. He was a top 40 player before, but this 2017 performance shot him all the way up to rank 7 by the summer of 2017. And honestly, there was only one really big roadblock in Chudat's way preventing him from being placed higher in the ranking. And that guy is Hungrybox. Now, Chudat is not new to being at the top level of Melee competition. And it's not like he's never beaten Hungrybox before. He's actually beaten Hungrybox at Zenith 2012, eliminating him at 4th place. They will only play 2 more times in tournament after this 2012 encounter, but the next time they meet is at Drew.
The suspect said not only free Palestine yesterday, but he said in Israel. I mean, the state charges are one thing, but federal terrorism charges are probably going to happen as well.
Yep.
Meanwhile, you have CNN saying, we had some of their analysts, and then Andrew McCabe getting on air as this is happening, saying, why is the FBI saying there are terrorism charges here? Why?
This random fucking psycho shows up with Molotov cocktails to set Holocaust survivor Jews on fire and children and say spam free Palestine, and they're like, why are they saying this is terrorism? Well, wait a minute. Well, we're not sure what his motives are.
They're saying it's active terror. Well, the guy clearly said that he was targeting a certain group. He wanted to end the Jewish state. This is why they are saying, not only did the FBI say this, but the AG has said this, the governor has said it as well. And many people are wondering, when are we going to put an end to this? The same thing that he's saying, people are saying out on the streets, on college campuses, ever since.
He knows, bro. He fucking knows. Thank God somebody is saying this shit. Yep. Here we go.
Yeah, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Dan, says this is not a political protester. This is a terrorist.
Yep.
You had one witness, Alex Osante. He was eating lunch.
Does anybody else think about the tremendous irony that this guy is throwing Molotov cocktails and setting Jewish children on fire, and the backdrop is a pride flag? I mean, this is like some kind of like fucking skit or something. Like some kind of like weird parody. At City Hall, yeah, what the fuck?
Inside, and he heard the screams outside, so he went out to help the victims. He said the attacker was vicious and aggressive with his Molotov cocktail weapons, but it seemed like a couple of others were actually on his side, arguing for him, which didn't make sense.
What? Who? How do you see some guy throw a Molotov cocktail and light a Holocaust survivor, 88, 89-year-old woman on fire, and then you're like, well, wait a minute. Well, why did he do that?
to the officers who made it there quickly so that they could arrest him. Dan Bongino, the FBI number 2 there, said the leadership team is there on the ground with the FBI. The National Counterterrorism Center is there, according to Tulsi Gabbard, and local law enforcement is also investigating.
But here's the thing. Here illegally. Asked for asylum during the Biden years, they said no, but he kicked it out. Then somehow he gets a work visa to stay. Does anyone interview these people?
But Brian expired in March, so he shouldn't be here.
Shouldn't be extended to begin with. This is why Tom Coleman, and what the military is doing at the border, upgrade border patrols.
Why didn't they just go get him? Like, after like a month, they're like, hey man, you're supposed to show up, but you're still here. Yeah, you gotta go. Yeah, it's past one. Yeah, you gotta go.
Doing so. Now
They
just
will
want
now.
to do.
That's what
We
we
gotta
do.
get these people who are breaking our laws. Stop telling me they belong in the community and they're one of us. They go to the blue states, the blue cities, where they can thrive, and in this case, attack.
Not just that, Brian, what Marco Rubio is doing with the visas as well at the State Department. If you don't love this country, if you're going to cause harm to people in this country, you got to go. Let's bring in former Deputy Envoy Combat Anti.
Yeah, I think that's what they always should have done. I mean, like, bringing in a bunch of random fucking foreign nationals that hate the country. Why the fuck would you do that? What other country would do that? It's retarded.
Semitism, Eli Kohanim onto the program. Eli, we want to get your general reactions to what's happening here, but a few questions about what's happening when it comes to the protest there. They're saying from the river to the sea. They're saying a global intifada, and they're saying free Palestine. What does that mean? Because these same people that are committing these acts of terrorism are saying those same chants.
They will be, the Free Palestine people will be forever lumped in with these actual terrorists because they refuse to condemn them. If you don't stop and cull your extremists, you will be defined by them. And that's what's happening to them right now, is that they are becoming defined by these extremists.
Lawrence, that's an excellent question, and I think that this latest heinous terror attack against Jewish Americans by this foreign national who burned Jews alive yesterday has to be a wake-up call for every American. I call on all Americans to now stand up with your Jewish neighbors and friends and say enough is enough. We need to
be honest, like, I don't give a fuck if they're Jewish or not. You're not supposed to set people on fire with Molotov cocktails. Anybody that thinks that's good, I want him out. You think that's a good idea, you're out. Nope. You're done. Get out. It's just that simple.
face the facts that this so-called Free Palestine movement is in fact a pro-terror movement.
In the First Amendment, are Molotov cocktails in the First Amendment?
And we need to draw the line in the sand. There can be no longer any tolerance for this movement, which has left two Jews...
This is the problem, is that, like, I disagree with her on this. The idea that the entire Free Palestine movement is representative of a handful of terrorists is unfair, and it's disingenuous. But the problem is that there are enough people in the Free Palestine movement that will make excuses and try to hand wave and hide their accountability from this. And this is what I was saying before. If you don't control your extremists, you will be defined by them. And they actively, they do not, it's very easy. Like, for example, like if you go back, like when January 6th happened, I woke up and I remember that day so clearly. I ended my stream early, and I woke up, and I saw Hassan had 150,000 viewers. And I was like, oh, fuck, what happened now? And I pull it up, and I see January 6th happening. And that's what it was, right? And I was like, yeah, this is it. And I immediately tweet out, like, this is bad. It's bad. But you're better than a time, after time you became pro-Israel? I never was pro-Israel. I've always been pro-America. That's always my viewpoint. That's what my viewpoint's been the entire time. I remember it clearly too. I fucking worked there. Yeah, there you go.
Left, 2 Jews dead in the last 10 days, and now again, a Jew, a Holocaust survivor, is burned alive on American soil. This is just not America.
These are the people who are fighting against Nazis, by the way. These are the people calling you a Nazi. They're lighting Holocaust survivors on fire. I know. Couldn't have predicted that one, huh?
On our values. And to that point, you know, as you just mentioned, Mohammed Salman, the perpetrator, is an Egyptian national. He was let into our country by the Biden administration, and so the Biden administration's failed immigration policies are not victimless. In this case, it is Jewish Americans who are the victims, but let me remind everything, the hatred that starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews, and so truly all Americans are potential victims for these failed immigration policies.
Ellie, I've interviewed the lawyers for hostage families. They have got a direct line between Iran, the Hamas, and these college kids on campus who are a lot of times have those things with them.
I'm so surprised. Wow.
Right, I'll read them later.
What a shock.
Khalil is 30 and graduated from graduate school. They don't pull. But what do you do? Number two is, this has got to be unwound. We can't just say, well, this crazy guy came to New York, did something, came to D.C. or blew up Josh Shapiro's house, and then we just burst out of the line and hold the Colorado. These are just crazy. There is different links. And we're good at doing that ever since Al-Qaeda 9/11. We pull back on that. We gotta get back to that right now and start identifying the direct line.
Am I the only person that this language makes me uncomfortable? I don't want the Patriot Act Part 2. I don't want more surveillance. And this is like, yeah, I don't want this at all. But that's what's going to happen if this keeps up. And I almost think, remember what I said before, is the government letting this happen so it can get bad enough that the people accept another Patriot Act?
I don't know. I wish Kojima was here to make a new Metal Gear Solid. That way we'd know. That would be great. Sure seems like a great plot.
To Gaza and Iran.
Exactly right, Brian. And look, this is part of what the Trump administration is doing in the short time that President Trump and the admin is now back in office. So what you're pointing to, Brian, is indeed the links between what's happening here on U.S. soil and other countries like the Islamic Republic of Iran. Look, under Biden, the DNI at that time Avril Lavigne came on the air and said that Iran was in fact funding some of the pro-terror, pro-Hamas movement on our campuses, and that... perhaps unbeknownst to our students, they were actually in touch with Iranian agents. So yes, this is absolutely correct that we've got foreign countries that are funding activities. Yes.
They told them that in the tunnels.
That's right.
Robert B. and Held, he says, we have links and we have supporters in America.
Somebody says 100+ dead in Gaza. You were talking about 5 dead Jews being the end of the world. Our government's occupied. Who's it occupied? I know this might sound crazy, but it's possible to care about 2 things at the same time. I guarantee you that setting 5 Jews on fire makes it to where people aren't going to be as focused on the dead in Gaza because they've shifted the focus away to the violence that's happened to these people. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe you're making my argument for me that this takes attention away from the actual victims? But you're never going to explain it because you know this is Domingo Zionist shill. This is another one, Holocaust survivor, that'll make them like 120 years old. 83. You are in your 40s. You're 41 years old probably. You can't do math? This is crazy. That's crazy, man. 41 years old, you can't fucking do math. Jesus.
campuses. They told us that.
Ellie, what's so disturbing about this is they were protesting. This group is called Run for Their Lives because that's what the hostages were trying to do. And they meet weekly to have these marches. They run and they walk, the organizers in
You
particular.
fucking idiot. Yeah, almost all of them are. The thing is that even like the people that should be calling this out first should be the pro-Palestine people. They should be the ones that are like ahead of the ball on this and like ahead of the curve and saying immediately, this person is insane, they're crazy, they don't represent us, we don't support this person's awful, we completely support the victims, and that's it, right? That's what they should be immediately doing, instantaneously.
Participants do, and they meet there in Boulder, Colorado, just to support getting these hostages out so that they can come home. And I thought last night when I was watching this breaking news, if I wanted to go to one of these marches, I might think twice now because I'm worried about copycats.
Well, that's exactly right, and that is
That's the goal of terrorism. That's why he did it. That's the point. Is they're trying to kill people that do it to scare people from doing it. That's the whole point.
If we're going to stay here,
Congratulations, you just defined terrorism.
is what terrorism is. What terrorism does is that it aims to silence good people. It aims to scare all Americans from speaking up against this kind of hatred, for trying to bring attention to the plight of the hostages, which this group of Jewish Americans was doing yesterday. But look, we cannot let the terrorists win. We cannot let these foreign nationals who come onto our soil silence Americans and try to somehow impact our values. So we all need to stand with the Trump administration as they seek to deport the foreign nationals who are here illegally. We need the sanctuary city.
Not enough. You need to be proactive. You need to be proactive. You need to have these people going into these different areas and these spaces where these extremists are, and then catching these people and stopping them before they do this. That's the issue.
Hey, we got to do something.
It's still not good enough.
Governors and mayors to wake up. This is a wake-up call, and stop these policies, because these policies are not victimless. Again, yesterday was Jewish Americans. Tomorrow it can be anyone. Anyone in this country can be targeted by these illegals who are here. So I would say these Democrats have to just get out of the way and let the Trump administration succeed in the policies that they're trying to put forward.
Or use this as an opportunity to combine with.
I like you and what the guy did should be punishable by death, but do you believe that anyone wanting peace supports this and like they planned and supported the attack? I think that enough people run defense for this that it looks like they do. That's the problem. I know that a lot of them don't support it, but I think that a lot of thought leaders inside of the pro-Palestine movement are afraid of calling out these bad actors because they don't want backlash from their extreme audience, right? Part of their audience. Like, they don't want to anger the 20% of people that are actually in favor of militancy. And so they just kind of, are, yeah, that's crazy. Wow, like, yeah, this is about it, right? And so, like, because, they don't want to say that and alienate part of their audience.
The Trump administration, Chuck Schumer, Jared Polis, Governor Shapiro. So how about a press conference with Trump officials saying, we got to stop this, right? Well,
Right,
what would be the problem about doing that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be great if we could be bipartisan and really face the
Should I make you sandwiches?
They can just DM me on Twitter. Yeah, just DM me. And I can switch it. It's not a big deal. Yeah, like I'll tell you where it is. It's obvious where it is. Just DM me. It's impossible. It's easy. Yeah, it's fucking easy. Like you could solve this problem in like a month. Like straight up, like you actually could solve it in a month. Aren't you tired of them saying about Biden administration's fault 6 months in? I'm not even thinking about that. I think that's fair for you to say that. Let me see you say anything. Let me see if I can read your comment, because this is a disagreement. I think. Let me see what you're saying. You're a pro-USA, and that's right, but I don't see how you feel most of your react to Hamas wrong, which is fair. Well, because Hamas are the ones that are attacking and terrorizing people here in the U.S. Not really Hamas, but Hamas supporters.
I've never been
If the
this
IDF
forward
was
in my
doing
entire
that,
life.
I would also be against it. I'm against AIPAC. I was critical of how everybody was jumping up, like clapping seals with like Benjamin Netanyahu coming and doing a speech here. The fact is, I see a boy talking about the other side, even though for some reason someone inside the USA, because they're not actively terrorizing people. That's the reason why. Like that's the big reason. If there is a Jewish person who went in and threw a Molotov cocktail at a bunch of pro-Palestine people, what do you think I would say? No, really, what do you think I would say about this? Yeah, well, anyway, like, I'll just go ahead and I'll answer, because I don't want to waste too much time on this bullshit, right? But in general, I would say immediately that it's evil and it's wrong and it's bad and it shouldn't be accepted at all and the person should be sent to jail or deported if they're not from this country, right? I mean, like, it's literally that simple. So, I mean, the entire premise that you're creating is totally a false premise. Sorry, delay? Yeah, no, it's okay. But, like, no, the reason why I'm giving asymmetrical criticism is because there's asymmetrical actions. I've never said anything in favor of the IDF, ever. I don't give a fuck about the IDF. And if I had a bunch of people here protesting and saying how great it was that the IDF was killing kids in Palestine, I'd say that they were disgusting. It's just not even a question. I understand what I'm talking about. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's really that simple.
Facts that anti-Semitism, standing up to anti-Semitism should be bipartisan. I grew up in this country. I remember when that was the case. I remember when Democrats could stand up for the Jewish community and could stand with Israel. How the Democrats have evolved where they are today. So I'm with you, Brian. I also
They've been taken hostage by the most extreme and most radical 20% for 10%. And they can't remove them without alienating the entire party. That's the issue.
Welcome Chuck Schumer to stand with President Trump and stand up against anti-Semitism. We don't need any tweets from Chuck Schumer. We don't need exactly. We don't need prayer. We need action from these Democrats. And the first thing they can do is stop their sanctuary city policy.
You fucking cocksucker, bro. Go back to your goddamn camp, man.
This is terrorist, this is violent, this is so violent. In America at a protest. Thank you.
I'm serious. I'm joking.
Somebody's getting grounded. Yep.
It really seems like the police were reluctant to actually arrest anybody. As being in a deep blue city like Seattle, I don't necessarily blame them, as the city's mayor made this much worse himself, because what was initially a Christian prayer rally got labeled as fascist family values, and now...
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, man. How do they keep doing this?
The feds actually had to step in, as on May 24th, May Day USA held a Christian concert for Hands All for Kids until massive amounts of protesters lined up. A protest against the Christians, even throwing water balloons filled with likely not water. So eventually Seattle PD had to move in, making several arrests.
These militants, get them out of here. Get them out of here, that's right. Oh, man. Yep, thank God.
being arrested and the wagon piece of.
But apparently the mayor didn't like that, as his official statement labeled it a extreme right-wing rally, saying
What is that? So does that mean you get to go over there and hit them with sticks? Like, I mean, that's fine. You want to say it's a right-wing rally, but you still can't go over there and hit them with sticks. Today's far-right rallies are promoting beliefs that are inherently opposed to our city's values. Really? What about the belief that you don't hit people with sticks that you disagree with? I think that's a pretty big value.
Galilee is proud of its reputation, but the far-right rally held here is opposed to our city's values, and he's grateful for those who make their voices heard without resorting to violence in the face of extreme right-wing national effort. It's almost,
of course. I mean, there's nobody is against counter-protesting or protesting something like this. I think that's fine. But the issue is that they intentionally blur the lines, and there are people that are violent, and they just get away with it. That's the issue. If people knew they would get fucked if they got in trouble for being violent, they would never do it. They do it because they think they can get away with it.
It's like the mayor purposely ignored what actually happened and just wrote what he wanted to be true, as apparently it doesn't matter if journalists like Cho or Davis Court provide you 4K evidence of violence. They're just gonna hunker down with their fiery but mostly peaceful narrative. As Cho showed once, the media tried to do it again, where the Daily Mail reported it as Christian prayer rally attacked by mob, while the Seattle Times said 23 arrests at fascist family values protest. Oddly omit,
of course,
who was attacking who and the religious aspect of the story.
Isn't it crazy how people just totally fucking misrepresent things in this massive way, and nobody even seems to give a shit about it? And people just eat it up. Like, they eat it up. Like, it's so totally fucking dishonest. It's unbelievable. Yeah, that's why the word fascist means nothing. How is Antifa the most fascist group out there?
Honestly, I'd rather be
because
drawing
that's the
like
best way to do it. Like, why do you think that there's all the time these male feminists that turn out to be the biggest manipulators and abusers of women? Well, you're gonna fish where the fish are.
The Christian concert saying leave the kids alone, with plenty of kids in attendance, getting mobbed by a group ironically carrying signs saying no hate in our neighborhood, and choose love, stand with us, or love thy neighbor.
Choose love or we're gonna hit you with a rock.
And stop far-right violence.
Right.
It's almost like they label anything they don't like as far-right or fascist just so they can justify attacking it.
That's exactly
As it got so bad, Seattle even had to deploy their poetry police. I imagine it's just an acronym, but I equally believe Seattle PD would pilot some slam poetry peace officers as they saw the worst sign I've ever seen saying, "I heart boy," and then another word for cat. There's really no...
I love poetry.
We started our own label. I'm calling it Shot. I'm the face of this organization. You always gonna be in my shadow.
Oh my god.
Getting sleepy.
Oh, Jesus Christ, guys.
We really out here. Where in public you should be waving that sign, but this concert has to be the worst. But what makes this even worse is even after all the arrests, since the mayor seemed to side with the protesters, when Mayday USA called for the mayor to resign 3 days later, the same group protested them again.
Hundreds of Christians and their allies went scorched earth on Mayor Bruce Harrell outside Seattle City Hall. Pastor Russell Johnson led
See, this is one of the things that I think if you really want to make a big change and you want to make this stuff stop, you have to show these people that they are a minority.
I'll settle.
A lot of these people operate off of consensus thought, and so you can make and demoralize a huge amount of them by by just making them realize that they're not the majority and their opinions aren't the popular opinion to have. I think that a lot of people really downplay and don't really give enough credibility to the power of consensus and how much that influences people's behavior. If people think this is the opinion that everybody has, they will be much more likely to have that opinion. So, like, the best way to deal with this is to confront it and show these people that they are small and radical minorities.
Demanding an apology or a resignation from Harold after being at their peaceful concert at Cal Anderson Park over the weekend, an extreme right-wing rally.
That's right.
This time feeling bold enough to square up with the police.
What do all of them have in common? Every single one. It's a bunch of fucking white people that are trying to carry around a cross and find a cop to nail them up to it. You are not protesting civil rights. You're not Rosa Parks. You're just a retard in a park. Please stop. This is exhausting. This is crazy. Some fat middle-aged man is trying to get in a fight. Are you being serious, man? What are you doing?
Now, I don't want to be mean to someone that may be terribly ill, but realistically, Blue Hat should never feel emboldened to fight that much larger police officer, unless the police officer's boss both publicly endorsed and encouraged it. As we saw earlier, they attacked Jonathan Cho, then went after Katie Davenport, and then went after other attendees not recording. And even this mother with her kid, which I don't even think I can show on here. So the Seattle police shut down entire sections of the city and actually had to escort the religious group out of the area. But then the police officer...
God. Bro, this place is a fucking zoo. What the hell happened? Oh my God.
Officers Guild put out this ominous warning, stating over 700 coppers have fled the city due to lack of action against Antifa criminals who did.
Yeah, see, this is the reason why, is that, like, eventually these people are going to get what they want. I wish there was a way that we could just have it to where people like this, it would be great if there was a way that you could, on your taxes, just say that you don't support the police and it lowers your taxes. But then you can't get 9/11 calls. And then there's like a database of everybody who's there online. And so people can just go over there. Yeah, I wonder what would happen. I think that their defund the police mindset would go away instantaneously. Pretty much overnight.
Take public safety, and now they do not have the staffing to handle these demonstrations that turn into mass arrests, as 1/4 of their remaining officers are eligible to retire, which may lead to even further turnover. And again,
yeah, if you're a police officer, why would you want to be a police officer in a city where the government actively tries to make you look bad, they handicap you constantly, you are a punching bag for a bunch of mentally ill college students, and you're not able to do your job? Like, why would you want to do that as a cop? I certainly fucking wouldn't. That would be awful.
Make your own North Taste combo. It's not fast food, but it's so good.
Supports the protest while ignoring the
stick and you hit them with a sword, that's received like a
Mayor is just a pure Antifa, because I imagine he thinks he's learning to take from these activists, completely oblivious to the fact that it's using these with the mob, and they'll put them against border protection and I don't feel sorry for Seattle, or just say sayonara. Yes, I know that's a Japanese word. You appreciate my advice. Commentary on the tragic status that is today's reality. Subscribe to Decoy Voice.
I had no idea it was such a fucking circus over there. I really didn't. I had no idea. That is so fucking funny. Because I thought all this stuff kind of ended, but I think that really what happens is that a lot of the people that go out and do this, I don't think that they have like anything else to do. So they just go out and they do these protests and they pop off and they do this stupid stuff. Remember Chaz? Yeah, I think that was in Seattle, wasn't it? There's the video. Give the video a like. Welcome to America? Yeah, I guess so. It's really, really bad. And I do hope that now, like, now that it's been, like, kind of, you know, observed more, that you'll see more people pushing back against it and shitting on it, right? And, like, being, you know, like, okay with the government coming in and shutting these people down, right? There's the video. Give it a like. I totally agree with this. And absolutely, Seattle has a huge drug problem. I wonder why. Yeah, there's a lot of home.
The suspect said not only free Palestine yesterday, but he said in Israel.
Wait.
Basically, the Wii is pretty much getting there. Where the most desirable games are just like super
It's important to remember that I'm not just a guy who spent all day looking up a bunch of stuff online and wrote it into a script that I'm going to read for you now. This is a real tech news show. I swear. Yeah. Microsoft claims it is ending USB-C port confusion once and for all by making USB requirements, like support for power delivery and DisplayPort Alt mode, mandatory for laptop manufacturers under the Windows Hardware Compatibility Program, or WHCP. Previously, these requirements were optional, which is why some laptop USB-C ports will fast charge your phone.
Here's the Paladin of the Aurora. Pronounce his name. Forge's speech. Titan! He was the youngest of the Paladins. You'll find his story in my chronicles. A beautiful blue child. Yes. The cut is exquisite.
Okay.
I think about that mic all the time. The night it came for you.
PCs powered by Intel perform at 55% when unplugged? It's like your whole team does.
I got you. PC's powered by Snapdragon X series. Max performance when unplugged.
Cool. The max performance that you deserve.
What the fuck?
What's up, Button Check family? Welcome back to the second episode of Button Check today. I posted one earlier and yesterday. Hope you guys enjoyed those. We got a special announcement. It is finally here. Capcom made 2 announcements today. Now, we're still waiting on Elena. We're still waiting for them patches, Season 3, all that stuff to drop. I think it's dropping in 2 days. We're going to talk about that real quick, but we got we got something out that just dropped within like the last 2 hours. I'm already saying too much. Chapters down below, sub button right there, all that good stuff. Let's check these buttons. Let's go. All right, now into that updated Street Fighter. 2 days until Elena drops. Buttons that need to be checked. I think we talked about this just on either yesterday or earlier today's video. I posted one at 10 o'clock in the morning today. They made another one. So they just posted saying, hey, we're releasing her a little earlier than we thought. And for some reason, they did it again. Right here saying now it's 2 days until Elena prances and charges into Street Fighter. They posted this just a few hours ago today. Along with balance changes to all characters. Let's do that again. Along with balance changes to all characters. Maybe we don't get as much as we thought, but it looks like no. This is going to be a big one. They posted this little thing right here, but yeah, you can see. Expect healing. Expect the healing, whether it's in a positive or negative way, coming in 2 days. FGC is reacting, saying, buffs to DJ and Ed, nerfs to everybody else, character, fair deal. Cool Kid, haven't seen him in a minute, saying, we're the patch notes. That's a big thing. People are like, let us know, have some time to be prepared for everything. That's what we do. Right? Continuing on, he said, keep Ryu the same nerf. Game mechanics, healing question mark, 5 buffs incoming, both of the matches now, the last communication, you miss, oh no, I think I missed oh no. The patch notes are give away more healing. 2 days ago, I can explain all improvements with his weakness. You see that, you're going to see so many regulators. Good. Please update to get more regulars from now on. Keep my nerfs, please. Keyboard headlines. Akuma Bison said he found the shot tab in the streets. Where are the patch notes? Man, this is such a iconic scene. You remember this, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? If I could talk, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the last episode, I believe that was the last scene. Anyway, I'm talking too damn much. Continuing on, fire communication/marketing team, please. You need to do better, like Jake does. Maybe there's a Elena and the patch notes drop That leads me to this next topic right here. They posted this 6 p.m., so about 2 hours ago, by the time I'm recording this. Check it out, y'all. Got a thing for chaps, jerseys, kimonos, and festival dungarees. Outfit 3. Oh my God, is this really happening? Outfit 3 for Bison, Terry, Mai, and Elena. Okay, Elena got it? Are on the way June 5th. This is a little trailer. I promise you I have not seen it. I have not seen it, but people's tagging me. Let's go.
This is a place to worship the Father. But you're making a den of thieves! You serpents! How will you escape being condemned by
all new places, there's all new experiences to celebrate. Hilton, for the stay.
Terry, okay, I can see it. I like these hip-hop looks, the street looks. Okay, look at the smile. Oh, okay, I like that. I like that stance. Elena. Oh, wow. With the pants, I'm not sure about covering up the legs, Elena. Some baggy ass pants. Oh, I like that bison one. That one got me. And am I mean, that's why. She looks good. Elena, okay. Wow. Can we rewind real quick, man? Check this out. So, I thought, okay, first of all, Bison is built this thing. Alright? Bison looks too damn clean. Terry, I mean, yeah, he looks cool. This is just my opinion. Some of you are obviously going to disagree, but Terry, y'all feeling? Can you believe it's actually here? Can you believe? Well, MZ can believe. Let's see some of his reaction. I see MZ saying, Bison is dead. Holy Dripson. Holy Dripson for me. Look at this shit, though. I love how they left it open, no shirt underneath. I mean, that's a fucking mob boss right there. That dude looks like gangster for real. Lord have mercy. Bison with the Leon Kennedy tip, though. Was not expecting that. Look at this picture. Wow. Yo.
Aaron.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks damn good, right? That Bison day one buy, it's refreshing to see new outfits. But as expected, the designs are dividing the audience. The Terry one that people asked for, W, would like to see the school uniform for Elena. Okay, so he said the Terry one is what people asked for. Really? I don't know. I missed that shit. It right over my head. IBC, or I don't care. Put some characters in the game, but I want to use. Stop wasting roster slots. Damn! We're not even talking about the cut. Okay, let's continue past that. Hope it ain't overpriced like the last ones. Oh my god, the timeline of these releases is terrible. Let's double the frequency of these, please. Okay, I feel that. We will be buying all of them. I see Omni as well saying Bison. Good lord. Bison, we see the fit, bro. Continuing on, let's see. Thank you. Not sure about Terry, but I like all three outfits.
I've seen the same line pass by 10 times already.
Just saved my life. We need more. My costume, her long hair is gorgeous. Thank you, Capcom, and more, please. These look amazing, right on time. Well, looks like I'm manning mine now. And then right here saying, Bison looks like Leon Kennedy. Mine is very beautiful. Terry is basketball. Elena is very nice. Hopefully, we start getting more outfits the rest of the roster pretty soon. And there you have it. Okay, damn. To be honest, man, I was planning on posting a second video of this one. It was going to be something else. Literally, it was going to be a different topic. And when I saw these two posts, I was like, we need to post now. I'm not even editing all that other stuff. I'm going straight for this. And I'm going to try to get it as fast as possible. I'm excited. To me, the My one and the Bison one just gets so damn hard. The other one, it's cool. That's cool. The other one was cool. And Terry, I can do without. Just for me, like I said, don't break your fucking mobile device or TV or PC, however you're watching Button Check, you know what I'm saying? Just my opinion. But I do think those fucking Bison is looking too clean. And mine's looking too damn sexy. So how y'all feeling? It's finally here. What did they say it was coming this Thursday? Let me go back up. I think it said June 5th, right? Yeah, June 5th. So right there. Community's still waiting on the patch notes. Some people are feeling some type of way, like, yo, do better, please. Yeah, obviously out already. Give us the patch notes. Let us hit the ground running. I think that would be a good look for Capcom. I think that would be
That's a very good thing to
get the community back in. I guarantee you, with all this content that's supposed to drop this week, it's going to be a different type of vibe. We feel like the state of the game has been pretty good. We've been waiting for a long time. It could be worse. You know, we look at what fucking Tekken's going through right now, we're like, oh shit, maybe we should just chill out because maybe it ain't all that bad in these Street Fighter streets. You know what I'm saying? But all of it's about to drop. Patch notes, Elena, these changes, and then we got Gamer Summer Game Fest coming out this week as well. What is that, Thursday? It's a lot, y'all. Not exactly sure what they're going to show, but either way, there's a lot, and it's all happening this week. Now, in saying that, there is a excitement, because I just thought about this. There's an excitement, because like, yo, it could be worse. We got all this stuff that's coming out this week. It's finally here. But ooh, after what we did see happen in fucking Tekken, is there a scare? Is there a worry? Like, fuck, could the game tank? I don't know if we even thought a game could tank that bad, especially a legacy game, especially a big fucking top game like Tekken, right? That's always been respected and like, oh, we love this game, and then just fucking went straight to the shitter. You know, some people say this gets better, but I think that was such a shocker. Such a like, holy shit, Tekken this actually happened to Tekken. Meaning, it could happen to anybody. So, I don't know, it's just a weird worry I have in the back of my mind. Like, okay, we've been waiting for this, we're really excited, but since everybody is getting buffs and nerfs or changes,
we're going to stay here.
We'll see.
I'll set up
the game still plays the same. I know there's some people that wanted perfect parry, the throw moves, the drive rush, whatever you want. There's a lot of system tweaks that people wanted, where they wanted removed completely or just damaged, lowered, or something. We'll see. Don't really know, but as of right now, hey, glass half full. As of right now, how could we not be glass half full? It's finally here. How y'all feeling? Let me know. Definitely, ladies and gents, definitely let me know how you're feeling. Thank you guys for the amazing love. This was, once again, the second video of the day. I will post one tomorrow. And yeah, we got some posts.
What if I told you that there is more than 26 characters in Melee? Thanks.
You got this? Huh? You got this? Let's go, Wesley! No! Okay. Hey, we need to do something that will just yeah.
This is serious. This is a serious video. I've been joking for a while that these code review videos are getting a little bit dangerous, and I think we're finally there. A couple days ago I put out this video where I reviewed it.
What you're about to watch will undoubtedly be the strangest piece of Tekken media you will have ever seen. I know it was for me. This is Games Master. It was a UK television show.
Lord, we doing something?
This is a place to worship the Father.
But you make it a den of thieves!
What have you done?
What you're about to watch will undoubtedly be the strangest piece of Tekken media you will have ever seen. I know it was for me. This is Games Master. It was a UK television show, apparently the first one that ever featured video games as the primary topic. And it came out. This episode came out in 1998, and they invited 4 Tekken 3 players from across the world to compete in this championship. I mean, look at what's over there. Look at this thing. This is... It was impossible to describe how I was feeling watching some of it the first time. I'm going to do some analysis, but to be honest, I think this is worth just watching. This is some of the craziest, funniest content I've ever seen, and I haven't seen the whole thing. I've only seen some of the fights, and these guys are nasty at the game. But let's check out Games Master Season 7, Episode 9, the Tekken 3 World Championship. This is a real 90s living room. What is he? Bro's tripping. Bro's really tripping. Oh, okay. Bro, what is this supposed to be? Is he supposed to be on drugs? Okay. Can you imagine? Like, the people playing Tekken and watching Tekken seeing this?
Hello and welcome to Games Master, where we're sometimes asked, instead of all that modern video game computer work of setting claptrap nonsense, why don't you feature traditional family board games instead? Well, we don't because they're cack. Cluedo, Uno is a game set in the Tudor mansion, which only serves to exaggerate the class divide already in existence in this country. Scrabble, a farcical affair where the word pants only gets you a low score. And worst of all, Twister, an infantile thing where the people that you're playing with often end up falling on top of you.
There's no way.
I ask you, not nearly as much as there is in today's show.
That is no way.
Both ladies, Emma Noble and Debbie Fleck, whipped themselves into a frenzy in Final Furlong.
But we begin with an event we call By Bloke from Another Country. Are you starting?
This is simply beyond belief. Okay, Tekken 3. Got my Tekken 3 shirt.
Not just here, but in arcades all over the planet. For today's challenge, we've assembled the greatest Tekken 3 players in the world to decide once and for all who is King Tekken.
King Tekken.
From Norway comes 24-year-old champion Øystein Andersen.
Bro's dripped up.
In Oslo and actually owns a Tekken 3 arcade machine at home. For the last week, Øystein's been on the practice for what will surely be the fight of his life. The United States is represented by Jeff Shue, who spends 5 to 10 hours a day playing Tekken 3. At a recent championship in Las Vegas, 20-year-old Jeff Trent, the opposition, will he do the same here.
Oh, did he win Evo? It's in Vegas.
From Japan, the home of Tekken 3, we flew in 21-year-old Sho Hiraki. Sho claims to play the game for enjoyment rather than to win, but this hasn't stopped him becoming a legend in his hometown of Tokyo.
What? Why did they zoom in on him?
80-year-old Ryan Hart, an ice cream bar attended by Dave.
That's Ryan Hart.
National tournaments, known as the best Tekken 3 player in the country.
That's Ryan.
Oh my God. The stage is set for the first international tournament ever. The champions have assembled, only one can win.
Oh my God. He looks so young.
Of 6 matches. Every challenger will play everybody else only once.
Okay, round robin, one time.
Form of the best of 3 rounds. With all game options set their factory defaults.
First to 2s.
I think my champions are ready, so let's get going.
Why is he the son?
Isaac and his mother lived alone in a small house on a hill. Isaac kept to himself, drawing pictures and playing with his toys as his mom watched Christian broadcasts on television. Life was simple, and they were both happy. That was